Good evening. We're here for our, we're going to start things off with our budget workshop. And if the three of you can introduce yourselves, and then please proceed.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Heather Hunter, the City Administrator.
Tracy Roy, the Finance Director.
Elaine Brockett, Social Services Director.
Before we get into the details, you will see there's some information that was at your place setting when you came in tonight. That's for Thursday's budget workshop, so you won't need those tonight. Okay. And without further ado, Tracy will jump into page 67 on social services.
So social services had an overall increase of $10,065 or 3.5%. Their personal services increased $11,140. This is due to steps and one caseworker position changed to a lead caseworker. Contracted services had a decrease of $1,040. The decrease is due to postage, $600. Again, this year's attributed to back to face-to-face services, less mail-in of forms back and forth to clients. A decrease in repairs and equipments of $500. This is due to the maintenance of copiers being moved to the MIS budget. You're going to see everybody's lines for maintenance go down. You're going to see MIS's maintenance go up because all the contracted copiers will be in that line this year. The fixed cost for that remains flat. This is for the social services administration. So we're moving on to social services. Note, just to let you a reminder that 70% of this is reimbursed. These portions that we're going to talk about next are reimbursed by the state. So you'll see a revenue for that 70% to cover. So that overall increase is $277,557 or 48.1%. Contracted services increased $19,350. Within that increase, utilities increased $15,000 due to the increase in cost and the clients. There's an increase of $350 in transportation. This is for the bus passes for clients for appointments and work, along with an increase in burial cost of $4,000. Supplies increased at $88,207. In food is the bulk of the increase, $89,207, or all of the increase, due to more families being seen, more clients needing assistance with food. This is offset by the decrease in medical of $1,000 due to more clients receiving main care. There's less medical that we have to cover. Fixed costs increased $170,000. All of the increases in rent. The state has increased the security deposit limit that can be covered and the cost to get clients into rents that are available. Temporary housing is remaining flat this year. So any questions for social services?
Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you. Has the state ever not reimbursed the 70%? Has it always been 70%? Was it higher, lower?
It was lower at one time, I believe, at 50%.
Yep.
50%?
And then certain cities like Lewiston, Portland, and other cities that saw larger increases ended up starting to get higher reimbursements.
Okay. And I guess, how does it work? And maybe Ms. Brackett can explain. I know firsthand that somebody went in, young lady, 2 children, homeless, sleeping in her car, friend's house, on the sofas. She went into general assistance and they said, there's a waiting list, we have nothing for you. How does something like this work? If anybody comes in and they're homeless, what happens? What's the process on it?
Well, first of all, we interview them to determine their eligibility, their standards of eligibility, where they may receive income, they're over the guidelines. In that case, we would refer them out to other resources, perhaps the shelter. If they do receive income, we may refer them to some of our landlords who could work with them with a deposit and so forth. There's no such thing as a wait list. We don't have a wait list. We try to interview each family and determine their eligibility. And if we can't assist them, then we do refer them out to other resources that we're aware of.
Okay. I had a sneaky suspicion I wasn't given the whole truth and nothing but the truth from that said individual.
And, you know, there are times when we do have to assist them with a motel temporarily while they're searching for the housing, or they're, you know, trying to access a resource. You know, there's a time frame. If they're sleeping outside or in their vehicle, we do try to house them.
How crazy is your office right now?
We're booking out 4 weeks out. We've encountered a lot of folks from many, many countries that speak a variety of languages, which we don't have the staff that speak those languages, so we're using the language line more often. But it's a full day. It's a very full day.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you and your staff. I've heard nothing but good things coming from that office. It's a very difficult job and very thankless job and a very stressful job because everybody wants it and they want it now. And I understand how you and your staff can be put under a lot of stress. So thank you very, very much for all the work you do. You do a great job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you. What's the turnaround time on the 70% from the state? Because I know the school departments, some of the things are, it lags quite drastically.
Typically, the department bills at the end of the month. It is not unusual to get the payment 2 months later, sometimes 3 months later,
And how does
depending
that,
on.
how does that affect services for the folks that are seeking services? Does it in any way?
It doesn't impact
Okay.
it. The city floats that cash.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, the deposits that the city helps the individuals with, does that come back to the city when they move out of the apartment?
Usually they do not, or we do receive a partial deposit.
Well, why is that? Why wouldn't we get the whole thing back?
Non-payment of rent, damages to the unit.
So we extend this to people and then they abuse things and we end up losing money.
That's correct.
That's
And
unfortunate.
that's why we restrict a one-time security deposit per
Okay,
household.
well, that's a
Yes.
great idea. Thank you.
Councillor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for coming in and explaining things. I just have a couple curious mind things. You have $144,000 for food supplies. How is that distributed? Is that a food voucher, or is it?
The food supply?
Food.
Oh, I believe I have it.
How do they
here.
qualify for food assistance?
Well, the reason for the increase in the food supplies has been because of the asylum seekers who do not have an asylum application in, and those people are not eligible for Department of Human Service benefits. So that's when we come in and we assist them with the food voucher.
Okay, I guess my question was, is it a food voucher you give them?
It's a food voucher, and it's specifically for a store, a vendor in the Lewiston area.
Okay, thank you. Because I noticed that's like $12,000 a month. That's a lot of money put up just for food. The other thing was rent. That's $51,000 a month we put up for rent on the average.
And I did a survey on with general assistance, what we have seen as an increase in the rent amounts. I'll find that here for you. If you compare it to the prior fiscal year, a one-bedroom has increased by 10%, two-bedroom 30%, three-bedroom 19%, and four-bedroom 20%. And this was only until the end of February. For the month of March, we're seeing increases of 100% in what landlords are charging tenants.
Just so you understand, I'm not questioning I'm just curious on how much we give out every month. And you guys are doing a great job, and we do need this in the city. Roughly how many people does that normally serve or help in a case, particular month, any month?
On a particular month, I would say probably 200 families.
There's a lot of people out there that need it. That's basically it. Thank you very much.
Director Brackett, how many staff work in social services,
There are 6 staff in the office.
including you?
7 including me.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Could I just point something out?
Sure, go ahead.
We're the only municipality that assigns workfare, which is part of a work requirement. Able-bodied individuals they are mandated to do workfare or volunteer work. And the number of hours is based on the amount of assistance that they receive. And looking at my numbers, I wanted to share with you that from July 1 of last year to present, we have had 299 people assigned workfare at 17,694 hours. The value of that at minimum wage is $244,184. It's a great program. I'm not sure why other municipalities do not partake in the program, because it does allow the individuals to gain some work skills, to understand what it's like to work in the United States, to be responsible, to report to work on time, to engage in the community. It's a fantastic program, and it gives them the skills that they need while they're waiting, especially the asylum seekers, because 95% of our asylum seekers are assigned workfare. But this is what they're doing while they're waiting for the work document. They're out there in the community. You know, they're gaining resources, job skills, the whole 9 yards, signing ESL classes. That's what we do in Lewiston. So I just wanted to mention that to you. They are giving back.
Where might someone be placed in workfare? Are these at employers, or you said volunteer? Like, do they do work for the city, or?
We have some who do work with Public Works. They clean the parks. We have some folks that are assigned to the root cellar, which they man the cafe at the root cellar. They provide after-school care for the children, teach them, help them with their homework. We also have folks at Lewiston Adult Education as administrative assistants. They greet the students and register them for school. The Immigrant Resource Center, we have about 10 individuals there that are community service workers that educate the other community. So it's a good variety. Depends on their background, depends on their skills and their abilities. We also have a few that man the computer lab at the library. So we're expanding out. We just recently acquired the Lewiston Armory.
What do you mean by that? Like, you'll be placing people?
We contract, yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Gotcha. Councilor Peace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, that's good, because I was under the impression that any asylum seeker couldn't start a job or do a job for 6 months. So they've been here for 6 months. So this falls under a different bracket, because this is under social services. Is that why they can go work someplace or do things?
It's payment in
Lieu
lieu of,
Okay.
they're
I think
getting
it's-
skill building, they're, as far as, excuse me, the benefits that they receive, they get scheduled to do that while they're waiting for their paperwork to be processed.
I think it's great. I think we should do more of it if we can. But,
Yep.
yeah, thank you.
And it's a continuation of them receiving assistance. It's mandated. So if we assist them for a 2-week period, and we total up the value of the assistance divided by minimum wage, and we schedule them for those hours do have to be completed before they come back. And if they're not completed, there is a penalty period. We'll give them one opportunity thereafter. But if the expectation is not met, there is a 4-month penalty where they cannot receive general assistance, as it should be in all municipalities.
Unless there's further questions, I'd like to continue here. Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director, I'm happy to hear that you have workfare going here. Some 40 years ago, the city of Augusta instituted that program and had significant savings in the general assistance budget. Of course, back then, expenditures were nowhere near what they are today. I don't know whether they're still doing that in Augusta or not.
I
It's really
don't
too
believe
bad
so.
because
Tracy would know.
we
Tracy
had
would
court
know.
decisions that came down that told us that we had to take care of whoever walked through the door, regardless of where they were from. And when we found that we could put the able-bodied ones to work, it cut down on some numbers, and it also gave us some relief on the budget end of things. So more power to you. Thank you.
And Councilor McCarthy?
One quick question. What would you estimate would be the percentage of people that fully comply with this, that don't just walk
Full
away?
compliance would be at 90% at least, if not higher.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's good, thanks.
Councilor Chalinas?
I don't have a question. I just want to commend you. First of all, I think it's really important that the public is hearing this information. Those are pretty impressive statistics, and I think a lot of information shared. I'm not sure our community is aware of that necessarily. So, and I don't understand why we're the only municipality doing that, but it's great. And I just want to extend my gratitude for you and outlaying some of those numbers tonight for everyone to hear.
Counselor, maybe some of the reason is the coordination.
Yeah.
So there's a liability with it. So you have to have, a crew, you have to have a foreman doing oversight, you have to determine what elements that you want them to perform, because they are also eligible for workers' compensation if they get hurt.
That's right. All right, thank you for that.
Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you. Have we contacted like the school department and seen if, even in the cafeterias, putting people in the cafeterias, serving, helping out? I think it's an awesome program, and I think it needs to be expanded. And if somebody is able to work and refuses to work, are they denied
They're disqualified for 120 days,
for 120 days?
4 months, yeah.
The other issue, hopefully you could share with, we talked, Councilman McCarthy talked about if somebody went and destroyed the apartment and they left, and they destroyed the apartment and the money doesn't go back, they do get penalized. It's not like you can continue doing this and just hopping all over the place.
Correct.
As a former landlord, if we called general assistance and said, no, they're getting evicted because of this, they no longer are on the rolls.
Correct.
Which makes it a little bit easier for the landlords because the tenant realizes if I trash this place, I don't get another. You can move, but you have to leave it in somewhat decent shape. Thank you.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you. So I would agree, it would be nice if they could go into the schools, but I just want to explain a little something. Those that work in the schools have to have a background check. So, and some of our asylum seekers, they don't have the work visas in order to work, which is why this program is so successful, I believe. And this is giving them the chance to do things. And I think it would be a little bit more work to get them to work in the schools, even though I think it's a great idea and I wish we could. There are background checks, there's oversight on that, there's insurance cost on that. So I think we could have that conversation, but I would be cautious about doing that as of right now.
Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One quick question. If they get disqualified because they destroyed an apartment or whatever, does that disqualify them statewide, or can they just go across the river to Auburn?
It should. It's reported to the Department of Human Services.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. All good questions and comments. I just want to keep things moving here.
Yep, so we'll move on to the recreation. Thank you, Elaine, and bring Nicole up.
So recreation's on page 68.
Hello, my name's Nicole Welch. I'm the Recreation Director.
So just to note, back on page 18, the new programs, of course, these are not in the budget. They're just on that new program sheet. Recreation has 2 new program service requests. The first one is to hire a recreation program aide at $60,709. The second request is to hire a youth and family program aide at $60,709. Again, these are not in the budget. These are under the new service items. So we're going to start with recreation admin. Overall increase of $9,402 or 4%. Personal services increased $6,608, which are salaries due to steps. Contracted services increased $2,674. This is an increase in the printing service of $1,000 for producing more flyers and more frequently to going out to the schools for the activities. Increase in mileage and travel of $925. Repairs to vehicles, $1,350 for the rental of a recreational passenger van with a slight increase due to the fuel surcharge, as we saw in the other departments. The increase is offset by a decrease in telephone of $384. This is due to the actual, budget to actual. Repairs to equipment, $267. This is again for the photocopier maintenance that will now be budgeted in the MIS department. Supplies increased $50. Fixed costs increased $70. This is for the Maine Recreation and Park Association annual due increase. So their dues are increasing slightly this year. Do you have any questions on recreation administration before we move on to the Armory? So Armory had an overall decrease of $6,668 or 3.9%.
Excuse me, Director. Councilor Pease, did you have a question?
No, I believe she already touched upon it.
Do you mind using your mic?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The salary and regular wages, you have $223,000. Is that not including the request of the next?
Correct. It's not including the request of the 2 new program. It's not in the budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Armory's personal services decreased $24,000. This is all in part-time wages. It was reduced due to the payment of rental fees, so the rental fees offset that fee. Contracted service increases $19,282. The increase is in utilities, electrical, and heating of $17,456. And cleaning services of $1,787. The cleaning services, it's due to the increase in the supplies going up for cleaning. Supplies decreased $1,950. Household supplies decreased are due to the COVID cleaning items that were reduced in this budget to match actual, less supplies being purchased due to COVID going away. Do we have any questions on Armory before we move on to the senior? None? Okay. Senior citizens is on page 68. The overall increase of $4,897 or 24.3%. Public service increase of $4,897. These are salary and wages of $24,906. Due to the increase of the age-friendly coordinator from 19 hours to 30 hours, which was offset by the temporary wage decrease. Last year, it was budgeted in temporary wages because it was only 19 hours. When they hit the certain threshold of hours, they now become under the salary and wages. So that kind of offsets the difference of the decrease of $20,009. Any questions on?
Is that position currently filled?
Yes.
It is.
Okay.
Any questions on that department? So we're going to move to the recreation program, which is on page 69. Note, this is a special revenue account, so it has no impact on the tax rate. Positive amounts in the recommendation column equate to the program being self-supported and able to support started programs and aquatic. With the current budget recommendation, the overall activity funds in anticipation to conclude fiscal year '23 with a deficit of 51,425 as it stands now. Fund balance at the end of fiscal year '23 is anticipated to be $222,880. So the general, which you'll see is at the very top of page 69, you'll see an overall surplus of $7,940. The field usage fees are increasing by $4,000. This is due to the turf rentals. Fundraising is being budgeted at flat, $32,850. Revenues are for the craft fair tables, sponsorships, concession stands, special events, programs, along with the sale of tickets to Funtown, York Wild Animal Kingdom, and et cetera. $19,750 is budgeted for the sale of tickets, which is offset in the cost of tickets in miscellaneous services. Miscellaneous services is increased by $3,385. The ticket cost of $19,000 for the sale of those Funtown, York, Animal Kingdom are budgeted flat, with an increase in the concession stand supplies and for the online MyRec software. Increase in interest revenue of $650,000. Special events miscellaneous service is increased by $1,497. This is due to the Halloween event, increase in around $300. The Easter event by $500. And the remaining $697 is for other events that happen at the rec department. Any questions on the general before we move to the day camp?
Councillor Peace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Miscellaneous services. There's a lot of those categories in here. In fact, it totals over $78,000. What basically you use all that miscellaneous service for?
So those are for their programs that they do. I don't know if you want to touch upon some of the special event programs?
Yeah, are you, excuse me, you're referring to 5316, the miscellaneous services in the account we're looking at?
Are you talking the whole suite in that fund,
Well, no, I'm doing,
that first chunk?
well, actually, yeah.
Okay. So that, Tracy did mention a couple of the items. So that one, so the miscellaneous services, we have a discount program for Funtown, Splashtown, York's Wild Kingdom, and Aquaboggan tickets. Those are supported through the state organization, Maine Recreation and Park Association. So we get Funtown, Splashtown, and the other tickets at a discounted rate. So folks in the public will come to our department and purchase them. We get $2 into our department as a thank you for selling the tickets. So that those ticket sales are upward of $20,000. So we have to pay a chunk of that back to the state organization. So the majority of the money that we bring in for those programs has to go back to the state, but we do bring in a couple $1,000s as fundraising purposes for that money. So that's why it looks like it's $26,000. What is in there? A big chunk of that is that. But we also use that as our general fundraising line. If we're piloting small one-time programs that can bring in extra revenue. For example, we're running into our second year where we're going to be partnering with the Lewiston High School football team and the boosters. So we're co-sponsoring a program. We're overseeing all of the registrations. We'll receive a little bit of income, and then we're going to give them money to help support their programs and buy supplies and such. We also run our recreation book readers out of there. We had our family ugly sweater party in December, so revenue from that program goes in there as well, and that way we can also purchase more items for special events.
Yeah, that now makes a little more sense than just blank miscellaneous.
Yeah,
Just one more question. Does flag football still pay for field rental?
so we don't, excuse me, we don't have flag football, but there's the Lewiston Area Youth Football Program. They currently don't pay any fees towards the fields.
Oh, okay, thank you.
But Counselor, to follow up on your initial question, for all of the programs, it may be easier to summarize where you have temporary wages that are our temporary employees that we hire. For all of the other programs, that miscellaneous services are comprised of a couple different things. It could be coaches, referees, it could be supplies. If it's like track or field, it could be paying for agricultural supplies. So it's all those outside costs versus our internal labor. Those are the distinction between most of the program expenditures,
Thank you, makes a lot more sense.
which may help Tracy for the next couple pages now.
So the next is day camp, which is also on page 69. It had an overall deficiency of 1,176, an increase in the projected revenues of 19,650 based upon anticipated demand of 115 summer camp registrations, increase in wages due to minimum wage, and anticipated attendance of 12,474. Minimum wage will be going up this year. Again, so that's anticipated in this budget. Field trip increase of 1,000, including the cost of busing for 85 to 90 campers and staff. Miscellaneous services increased 2,750 for the staff and campers' t-shirts. They all have to be wearing the same t-shirts when they go on field. What am I trying to think? The
Field trips.
field trips, so that they're easily identified. Sorry. Special events, supplies, and increases in the art supplies. Volleyball, overall surplus of 19,727. The revenue increased by 4,700. Temp wages, fringes decreased by 4,375 due to removing the adult referees out of the budget. Miscellaneous services increased 3,830 due to the replacement of the equipment cart and increase in t-shirt cost. Track had an overall, should probably tell you what page. Track is between page 69 at the bottom and 70 at the top. Overall surplus of 1,020. Revenue is increased by 4,150. This is due to an estimated increase of 30 more registrations for the summer track. Last year, they had 50. This year, for fiscal year '24, they're estimating 80. Wages and fringe will see a slight increase of $529 due to the increase of minimum wage. Miscellaneous services, an increase of 1,737 is due to the bus rentals, porta potties, team t-shirts, and home meet timer and meet fees. Tennis had an overall deficit of 1,517. Revenue is projected to increase by 2,000 due to registrations going up from $60 to $80 for 100 participants. Wages and fringe increased slightly at $672 due to the minimum wage. Miscellaneous services increased $3,145 due to recreation portion of the tennis court repairs. Soccer is on page 70. You'll see an overall surplus of $2,455. Projected revenue increased $465. A decrease in wages and fringe of $2,052, an increase in miscellaneous services of $1,420 due to the increase of the t-shirts, porta potties, and soccer field paint maintenance. Lacrosse, you'll see an overall surplus of $438. Revenue increased slightly at $355 due to the kiddie stick participation increase in $2,350. Which is offset by the decrease of $1,995 for grades 5 through 6. There is a slight increase in temp wages and fringe of $92, and a decrease in miscellaneous services of $1,468 for the lacrosse officials due to estimating 12 less home games. Field hockey is also on page 70. There's an overall surplus of $431. Increase in revenue of $310 for the introduction to field hockey rates going from $40 to $45. A slight decrease in wages and fringe of $248. An increase in miscellaneous services of $558 due to the porta potties for the field, for the portable hockey nets that will be purchased for the field hockey. Basketball is on page 70 and the top of 71. Overall surplus of $2,884. Increase of $1,820 in projected revenues, tempered by the decrease of wages of $5,295. And that's also offset by the increase of miscellaneous services of $2,700, which is for the T-shirts and purchasing of basketballs. Baseball is on page 71. Overall deficit of $4,197. Revenues increased by $5,800. A slight increase of $104 for wages and fringe. Miscellaneous services increased $4,768 for porta potties and the increase of T-shirt cost. A decrease in other supplies of $2,800 due to it not being needed this year. Cheering is on page 71. Overall surplus of $1,189. Revenues are remaining flat at $6,150, and a decrease of $1,099 in wages and fringe. The Mad Science and Theater, these are passes through programs with the organization where we get the overhead portion of the registration. The expenditures are currently charged for this fiscal year, and the revenues usually come in around May and June. That's why where you see the actual, you see an expense, but you're not seeing the revenues. Those usually come in around May and June. Age Friendly, this is a new program. This will be set up for trips and programs such as chair yoga. So this is new this year. Aquatic, which is on page 71 at the bottom and top of 72. This is a donation is transferred from the city, $18,000 this year, which is $12,000 of decrease from last fiscal year. Wages have decreased $24,000. The budget last year had an agreement budgeted for the YMCA, which did not end up getting signed. That's why you're going to see a decrease in that line. The $18,000 is paid by the city's transfer. The remaining $18,000 will be paid through recreation fees. And miscellaneous service increased by $675 for the replacement of spine boards, swimming bracelets, lifeguard umbrella, and etc. supplies for the pool area. Pickleball, you'll see an overall surplus of $1,125. The sport has become one of the most popular sports within the last couple of years. Estimated revenue to increase $1,250, with miscellaneous services to increase $625, and that's for the porta potty rentals. Childcare, overall surplus of $595. This was a new program last year, which began around February 2022. All accounts remain flat except for the FICA, which just needs to be budgeted at $1,755.
So Nicole, do you want to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about how the pool's going to work this summer?
Yep, certainly. So to echo a little bit about what Tracy was talking about regarding how last year we had a $60,000 original planned budget for the pool. We ended up partnering with the YWCA last spring, which in turn helped us open up the pool in general. We were able to acquire an aquatics director. They were super supportive in helping us find aquatic aids and more lifeguards and such. And so that resulted us in having a 3-day schedule, 3 days per week, over an 8-week period for open swim. There were about, depending on the weather, it was 15 to 20 hours per week. This year, we're planning on, if we can fill all of our spaces, we're looking at a Tuesday through Saturday opportunity, probably 5 to 6 hours. Again, it's really contingent on the amount of aquatic aids we get, amount of lifeguards that we have. Right now, the aquatics director is returning, and I do have 2 lifeguards that are confirmed that are going to be coming on for the summer. Aquatic aids, we'll start to see those applications come in probably in the next month or so. I have a couple returning from last summer, but so that's why you're seeing the decrease. So the I believe it was around $36,000 for temporary wages. That will cover the pool being open for Tuesday through Saturday to cover for the staffing, if we can fill all those positions.
And when would what day is this scheduled to be open?
The last Monday in June.
Okay. A couple other questions I had, Director. So, between all of the sports, like how many kids does the rec department serve?
Well, unfortunately, that's the one number I did not bring up tonight. I can give you some ballpark numbers. So our basketball programs that, start in November and are still happening right now, we have about 375 participants just in basketball. That is ages 3.5 all the way through senior in high school. We are projecting around 100 in our pre-K T-ball programs this spring. We've recently added a Randall Road Running Club, which is a fall cross-country program for kids in grades 2 to 6, which is kind of a preemptive program before they get to middle school. There really wasn't an option for young kiddos who wanted to do a running program before that. We have our soccer programs. Like I said, we're partnering with the LHS boosters to do a spring soccer program. We have indoor soccer right now. Alyssa, am I missing any?
For soccer?
Any programs? Soccer?
We have a currently going.
Alyssa, could you come up to the podium,
Sorry.
please? Yeah, back there.
So this is Alyssa Clark. She's the recreation coordinator. This is definitely her wheelhouse. She's the one who implements and oversees all of the youth sports programs and a lot of our youth enrichment programs. So can you give us just a quick rundown of what kinds of youth sports that we have happening right now?
Yeah, so right now, actually, I just came from our Armory Hoops League, which is a fun program that we do with Tree Street, Root Cellar, and the Boys and Girls Club. So that's a free middle school and high school basketball program. We started it last year with them. And also currently going on with the Lewiston High School baseball varsity team. They're doing a baseball clinic for us. We have a softball pitching clinic with the high school softball program as well. And then we're gearing up, like Nicole was saying, for T-ball. We're looking to do a downtown baseball program this summer as well, working with the Cal Ripken League and as well as the high school program. So that's something new and exciting coming down the pipeline. And she touched on basketball, grew great, a lot this winter. Like she said, 375, and we're looking to keep pushing those numbers. And yeah.
We have spring track and field and summer track and field as well. And we also have a series of youth sports camps. We have youth volleyball. Sorry, it took two of us to come up with the entire list together. There's a lot of activities going on at all times.
No, I can certainly see that. And I realize that sports cost money and the fees, go to provide these programs. But what options are available for economically disadvantaged kids?
Yep. So we have been working on develop a scholarship program. There hasn't been one yet. We have a form figured out. I've talked briefly with Heather about trying to use some of the funds from the concession stands to offset those costs. And we totally see your concern. Porta potties are going up $50 a month per unit this coming summer. The cost of paint costs a lot of money. You heard Tracy talking about the cost of T-shirts. So there is cost to every single program.
No,
but we're hoping that the scholarship program will be up and running. I'm hoping for July 1st. But Alyssa's actually done a really good job getting free programs up and going. So she's partnered with the Bates lacrosse team to offer a free lacrosse clinic this coming spring. She's worked with Healthy Androscoggin to do free cooking programs for families, which is now transferred over to our older adults and age-friendly programs as well. And the league that you spoke about right now, the Armory Hoops League, that is a free league that serves, I would say, just over 125 kids from Root Cellar, the Boys and Girls Club, Tree Street, of course, and the rec department. So we are trying to offer a healthy mix of, at-cost programs and free opportunities.
Excellent. Yes, I would love to see this scholarship program up and running ASAP. The sooner it's up and running, the sooner that our local businesses can help contribute.
And we
So-
currently do get businesses now that contribute. So that has helped us over the years keep those tuition costs down and more affordable. And I know the city of Lewiston does a series of Jeans Days right around this time that goes towards the scholarship and helps offset the aquatics program too. So-
Excellent. I guess if businesses, I realize that the scholarship program, it sounds like it's imminent, but if businesses wanted to contribute now, like what is the way to do that?
We are revamping our media and sponsorship package, which has options from sponsoring a sports team to hanging up a banner at the Armory, and we also have special event opportunities too, if they'd like to hop on to the Halloween event or a springtime event. We're also open to new ideas, and if people would like to reach out, they can definitely talk to myself or Alyssa Clark. She's also one of the pioneers of the program.
Thank you so much. Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you. Director Welch, is the City of Lewiston for the aquatics program partnering with the YW or the YM?
The YW.
YW, okay. And then just back to the scholarship thing, I saw sort of in the look back of the budget for 2022, there's some mention of some scholarship under one of the line items, just, it was before we got into individual sports. But then I saw too, under the recreation day camp, there was some reference to 2022 about a donation from Camp Smiles. And, I think the summer rec program is what, $700 or something? I saw it advertised for.
Yep, there's an early bird, for residents, early bird right now is $850 for a 7-week program.
Okay, so when we talk about, so $850 if they register, like sometime in April or something?
Yep, and registrations are open right now.
Oh, okay. So when we talk about scholarship funds, is that also going toward the summer camp as well? Could someone apply for a scholarship if they could only afford like half of that to send they had like 3 kids, for example, and they might not be able to come up with $850 times 3? Is there some kind of a thing that could be worked out in terms of a scholarship, or there's no money for that?
That's something that we're trying to work on. Last year, we did receive an anonymous donation that was geared towards some families that we knew needed some extra help. Something that I'm working on is a more official form, because I'd love to be able to say, oh, you need help, I want to help you, here you go. But I do need to collect some data and look at find language to help kind of determine those needs.
Yeah, okay. I love Mayor Shalene's idea. I mean, I do believe that there's a lot of local businesses, if they knew they had an opportunity to help a child attend, summer rec camp, and knew that the funds were going to go toward that. I mean, whether it's a Gene Day or whatever you want to call it, I think that people would really show up for something like that.
Councilor Jelinas, just to clarify, the Y partnership was for this past summer. We're running it on our own this summer, coming up. Okay, I didn't know if you caught that. Okay.
Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The summer camp program, how long has that been going on for?
Probably at least 10.
At least 10 years? How many students, how many children go to that, and what's the age groups?
We have ages, we have kindergarten through 9th grade, and then we have a counselor and training program for students who are 9th, 10th, not quite ready for the work field yet, where they can come and they can learn how to be a counselor, and they can do job shadowing, going trips. We have about 140 kids total, and they have the option to choose to do the entire summer. They can choose to do 1 week here, 1 week there, and we do have some circumstances where if they just need a couple of days here and there, and we have availability on our field trips, we'll definitely make those accommodations as well.
Is this like a Camp Connors that the Y used to run?
I'm not sure about,
It's a similar model,
Similar
yes.
model? Okay.
Yeah, we're off campus 2 to 3 days a week. We bring entertainment in. We do a lot of walking field trips. We go to Jude's Playground, and they go to the pool every week as
So
well.
that many students, how many staff members do you have?
Every year between, I would say 16 and 21, depending on how the numbers land up. It also depends on how many staff want part-time versus full-time hours. We do a ratio of 1 to 7 every day, and we're a ratio of 1 to 5 on all water trips.
Awesome. I liked what I saw in the paper the other day on age-friendly games. Sometimes we get caught up just focusing on our beautiful little children. They're wonderful. But we tend to forget people our age that are sitting out here on this dais, that That's being, you're the youngest person here, okay, so that's, but it's.
Almost, but not quite. I'm
Okay,
second.
I'm sorry, Scott.
Second, yeah.
So I really enjoyed seeing that and focusing on some age-friendly activities to keep that going. Auburn has really made their own niche thing with the softball. Nobody's going to touch their softball. Their basketball program for the adults, that's just embedded, and they do a wonderful job. Let's not compete. Let's just find something else that we can do and do it well. So I commend you on that. Two other questions. How has the Boys and Girls Club worked being in the facility? Is it working well? Do we have problems? Have we had growing pains? We're a year removed from that decision.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Me and my staff, we've been very elated. It's been great working with another community organization. We have very similar philosophies. We put the kids first. It hasn't been burdensome as far as sharing space. So obviously they want to use the gym as much as possible, and we also have our in-house programs and rentals as well. We've been able to work schedules out pretty well. We have had to change some policies as far as which doors are open at which time to accommodate kids coming in and out of the building. We've been working on making sure that the kids know which spaces are off limits. If the Boys and Girls Club is open and we have, say, like a volleyball practice that's happening in the gym, they want to go out and they want to sit in the balcony and watch the awesome things that are happening, which is really great exposure, but sometimes it can create a little bit of a distraction for the people who are actually renting the gym. So there's been small education pieces like that. And I will say they have had a great following. I think every day they probably have 40 to 50 kids there. And the director, Gary Violet, he's very communicative and he's very supportive of the things that we're doing as a city as well.
Excellent. And last but not least, how are we addressing, the rec department is great, it's located downtown. How are we addressing attracting people that are not just downtown? How are we getting to outer Ward 6, outer Ward 7, outer Ward 4, Ward 2? How is that coming along? And I understand the scholarships and all that stuff, but we're a full city. We need all of us to participate in it. It can't be just one group or from one strategic area.
I agree with you, and I think we all love the Armory, and it's great, and it's kind of the symbol of recreation in the city. But I've had meetings with other members of the community, and that's one of our, hopefully short-term goals. The building right now is open 7 days a week, and we have programs happening all the time. We have 4.5 staff members to be able to make sure that building is operating 7 days a week, year-round. To be able to make more quality programs, say, happen at Randall Road, or do more things at Kennedy Park, or even we have that beautiful boat launch down at Samar Payne. We really need more full-time employees to be able to offer those things. I know the fitness court is a really valuable facility that just came to the city. I would love to be able to train some of our employees on how to use that equipment to be able to offer more free classes, because you could do free age-friendly classes, you could do free 14, 15, 16-year-old teenager classes. There's a wide range to do, but right now bandwidth is our biggest hurdle as far as offering any more programs in the city.
It's not even just going there, it's drawing the people from on the outskirts of town into town.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has anybody thought of contacting the newly formed Senior Citizens Advisory Committee? See if they have any ideas on how they can probably contribute some volunteer time, being, supervisor or something where they don't have to be physically trained. These
Yeah.
we've been down the road with kids, so we.
Yes. Not specifically. So Stephanie Cody, our age-friendly coordinator, she's been interested in being more active in the Lewiston Senior Advisory Council, committee. But I'll recommend that to her, and I'll talk to Donna Gallant, who is the chair of the LSAC as well, and make sure they connect.
Good, thank you.
Further comments from the council? Well, last year I dropped in on Camp Smiles a couple times, and indeed, there were smiles all around, so thank you for everything.
So, Mr. Mayor, we will turn it over to the police chief for his presentation now.
Thank you, ladies.
This is, we're doing, yeah. Done with the budget, yeah. Chief St. Pierre, thank you for being here. Yeah, please start, and if I can ask counselors to hold their questions until you're finished with the presentation, that'd be great.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening to Council President Scott, City Councilors, City Administration, and Mayor Shaline. I'm going to read through this, and then after, like the Mayor suggested, is perhaps, if you want to ask any questions, I'm certainly able to answer those at that time. Good evening. I'm Police Chief Dave St. Pierre, and I'm here tonight to share with you an update on Lewiston Police's strategies to address the quality of life issues here in Lewiston. In addressing quality of life issues and enforcement of laws, our approach is to find a balance between our residents and local businesses with an individual's rights and needs. And by applying good police strategies, I think we can accomplish that goal. First, let me allow me to address Lewiston's position on the homeless crisis protocol. I've spoken about this before, but as a reminder, it says in part that those who commit low-level quality of life offenses are in need of services rather than the traditional entry into the judicial system. These offenses include such things as criminal trespass, disorderly conduct, indecent conduct, possession of scheduled drugs, primarily usage of drugs, and public drinking. They account for many of the crimes and quality of life issues that the community struggle with and commonly report to the police. And it works like this. When an officer encounters a person committing one of those offenses, the officer determines during that interaction that the individual is unhoused. They then proceed with our homeless crisis protocol, which includes alternative action responses such as, and I'm going to list a few, our Project Support You referrals. Our PSY worker, Project Support You, generally walks with our officer on foot beat daily or rides with the police officers. That PSY worker can get there to assess or provide resources for the person that we're dealing with. City Council also approved a new vehicle which is being ordered for the PSY worker, so thank you very much, I appreciate that. We currently have one PSY worker, and we are seeking an applicant for a second. We also have the options program, which focuses on drug overdoses, evaluation, medical, mental health, and SUD resources, substance use disorder. And we can arrest or cite additionally. Additionally, Lewiston Police developed and implemented our own SOP. So as the crisis protocol, all law enforcement agencies throughout the state had to develop a policy on their own. I've included all of those policies in your packet, our policy in the packet, as well as Portland's and Bangor's, if you care to compare them. They're very similar. Like those cities, if our officer exhausts all options and alternatives to arrest, officers can take next steps that are similar to what their colleagues in other cities would do. Our policy states in part, if the officer determines that law enforcement action is necessary, the officer may summons or arrest the individual, but still, all the while, still providing the support resources that we intend on providing. For example, if an individual has been given repeated warnings for those low-level quality of life offenses, in the safety or security of other law-abiding citizens is jeopardized, that officer can still take legal action, summoning or effecting an arrest. Other options that we can take include a lot of things. We've recently increased our foot patrol, our walking beats. We have one officer that walks on a daily basis from 9 to 5. Many of you have seen him in the business district, as well as in the parking garages. In addition to that, our officers are on our regular beat assignments, are getting out of their cars much more frequently, and they're interacting with the public, which is an important aspect of their job. Our morning watch typically goes out between 5:30 and 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning prior to the walking beat coming, talking to people, moving people along if necessary, as well as our evening patrols are also going out there and walking whenever applicable, given that they are sometimes busy and can't get out for extended period of times. I'm urging them to do that and document it with a call of a foot patrol beat. We've increased security in our parking garages, as most of you are aware, by the inception of our security outfit that we hired. We're getting great accolades for that from the community. A lot of people see them and are very appreciative of their efforts. Their flashing yellow light provides a lot of comfort for some, and they report to us on a regular basis. We've installed additional cameras in parking garages, particularly the Chestnut Street, Centerville, and Oak Street parking garages, and I think we intend on doing more as more money is available for the cameras. And I think I addressed the council last time on those cameras and their benefit. We're taking an approach to working with our local business and property owners to assist with trespass enforcement. This includes businesses and property owners signing a request for us to enforce trespass incidents. Previously, for instance, if an individual was sleeping in a business's entrance at 3 a.m., we had to call the business owner at that time at 3 a.m. to see if that person should be there and if they would like us to move them along. The response might be obvious, but it's a private property and we had to first inquire. What we're now doing, several local businesses are requesting for us to enforce trespass incidents, which then allows us to act at the moment rather than having to call and wait. So far, we have over 20 local businesses that have signed up, many of which are in the business district. Basically, the officers have a site file they can look at, 200 Lisbon, for example, just using an example. They can see that that owner has signed a request to move people along, so we can then do that and enforce trespass. Many of you might have seen in the paper, we just recently implemented our Neighborhoods First initiative, which allows LPD to rapidly respond to highly visible minor misbehaviors that, if not handled as they occur, could mushroom into larger issues. Our goal is to be proactive and to address these issues before a citizen even has to call us to report them. Another complaint that the police receive often is about panhandling. Those calls range from, why can't you arrest them, to asking us to simply remove those panhandlers. We cannot. First, there are no anti-panhandling laws in Maine. And secondly, the U.S. Supreme Court has held that its First Amendment, they're covered by the First Amendment, covering charitable appeals for funds or panhandling. Generally speaking, panhandling is covered under the First Amendment. However, police can still take action if they're committing an illegal act, such as obstructing a public way or committing any other illegal act. We can certainly enforce those acts. We also believe that our recent staffing increases will enable us to dedicate our resources to be better and more proactive. With increased staff, we're able to resume our walking beat in the business district. This past winter, we had to get that officer back on to a regular patrol beat. Now he's out there, and he has been since January 4th, and we intend on keeping them there for the rest of the summer. We've re-implemented our crime reduction unit, or CRU, C-R-U, which consists of a sergeant and 2 officers who can go out there and proactively enforce these minor violations before they become worse, not having to worry about going call to call because they're not assigned a beat. This is a proactive unit that we weren't able to do really because of staffing challenges. We're also, with staffing increasing and us getting to be at a better level, we're now at about 93 to 95% staffing. So we have 4 positions that we can fill right now, just to kind of clarify. We're also looking to possibly add somebody to our CROW team, and that's our Community Resource Officer team, who interact with the public on a regular basis. They might stop and play basketball with some children that are playing in the parks, and really just to increase community involvement with the community and the officers, and establish a level of trust that they can talk to the police and such. We are increasing, as I stated, our walking beats, and we're documenting all of those. Should you the council or anybody have any concerns or questions, they can certainly call me and say, how often are you patrolling on foot? I can tell you every one of them, or we will be able to tell you how many times we're out of the car doing it. And I'm confident we're going to be able to do it much more than we have been in the past due to COVID and other concerns. To aid us in doing our police jobs more effectively, jails are now more accommodating. Just 7 months ago, our jails had such strict COVID rules that the jail couldn't even accept public drinking, disorderly conduct, or similar offenses at all. They wouldn't. We could say, can I bring over a disorderly conduct arrest? The answer was no. Unless it was a crime against a person, a crime of violence against a person, we really couldn't bring them there, nor could we even ask to bring them there. Well, we could ask, but the answer was generally no. So the jail opened back up to us for regular intake on on August 15th, 2022. That's not that long ago. It's 7 months ago. And now I think we're able to do our jobs much more effectively. I mean, we still have to obviously concern ourselves like we always had with their jail population. There's only so many people they can put in there. It's not our desire to just fill the jail, but at times it's necessary, I think, to effect an arrest to put an end to a problem. So finally, just to close this, this council passed a new city ordinance, as you're aware, back in December on loitering. That offense, you've elected to hold off enacting that ordinance, I guess, until April 1st. So just as a reminder, that's 11 days away. What that really does in effect is allows us, it adds not just to the public parks that were already on the books, but it adds all city property that's owned or maintained by the city of Lewiston, that if somebody camps, remains, loiters for extended period of times, we can move them along. That's all I have. I thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm sure you do. I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I bumped into Officer Kenyon and PSY worker Bernadette earlier today. So yeah, I appreciate your department's efforts and obviously being mayor and owning a business downtown and owning buildings downtown. I am downtown quite a bit, and it has made a difference. So thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for coming in front of us. The group, is this going to be able to address some of the encampments that we've had around the city, Adams Avenue, Adams Street by the Public Works, even the whole tent city that we had down off from Lincoln Street?
Yes, they're going to be used in addition to our CROW team. Our CROW team, our Community Resource Officer team, typically takes the lead on that as far as the police department. Our officer, Travis Vecto, and Sergeant Mike Dumont have been instrumental in moving people along while still providing quality resources and, bringing the PSY worker with them. I mean, to us, it's important not to just move them along, but to help them find or regain confidence, rebuild their lives, if you will, find the necessary resources that they need. So our CROW team is primarily that, but our crew team certainly will assist with that as well.
So if I owned a piece of property that had that problem in the past, is that something I should contact the police department to be put on that list?
Absolutely.
Like
That would be our
downtown
CROW team.
CROW team?
Contact Sergeant Michael Dumond or Officer Fecto. They'll put you on that list. We work in concert with the Public Works Division in removing some of the property that's left behind or abandoned or unsightly. There are some on Adams Avenue that I'm familiar with that should be cleaned up relatively soon, as well as the tree house, if you will, on Lincoln Street.
So two real quick ones. This is a direct reflection on your added staff that you're able to do this now.
Absolutely,
Correct.
no doubt about it.
So it's a
We
direct
just
correlation.
couldn't do it before, and we can now. We have the resources, and we're going to use them.
And last but not least, how has the temporary shelter gone on Sabata Street? How is that?
Are you referring to the Calgary?
Yes.
Calvary?
Calvary.
Yeah. We've,
The warming, okay.
yeah, the warming shelter,
Whatever it's
right.
called.
Right.
Thank you.
We've certainly had our challenges there. I think from January 17th or ish, when it started, till current, I got a report today, and it had 98 calls for service to that in that short period of time. So there have been some challenges there. We've addressed them. We continue to address them. That warming shelter closes March 31st. So, and I think the security outfit, correct me if you will, but is going to remain a little bit to make sure that people are aware that it's no longer open. Some of the problems that existed there and continue to exist is people showing up ahead of time, remaining, bringing all their belongings. We've had some complaints from many downtown businesses, whether official complaints or just, business owners that we know have discussed it with certain officers and said, what's going on, because there's a lot of people on my property and such. We've been rather diligent to try to move people along when the shelter is not open. We've experienced some problems and issues there. We've addressed them with the volunteers that were running the shelter, and so yes, we have had some issues. We're working on it still.
Thank you, Chief.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So, Chief, thank you very much for presenting us with this information. Excuse me, I've got a couple of questions, and excuse my throat, I'm not feeling so great this evening. How long has this policy been in place? Has it been in place since March 21st of 2022?
Which policy are you referring to?
The policy on the homeless crisis protocol.
So the homeless crisis protocol was signed into law on March 1st of 2022. So this makes one full year and a little bit that has been in effect. All police departments across the state have had to develop their own policies as such, and they're all very similar, I can tell you. The major theme is to try to provide these people a service that they need, to not set them further back in their homelessness. Now, like, we recognize that if we're going to charge somebody, or if we arrest somebody, is it going to help them more, or hurt them more than it's going to help them, or the situation. We try not to do that, and even if we do resort to an arrest, we're still providing that very same service to them, or the offer of services and resources.
So a couple of questions. So on the particular area where it was talked, it was actually under listed offenses, the meaning of listed offenses, under public drinking in violation. I just had a question because I don't know if that was a spelling error or not, but it says a person is guilty of public drinking if the person makes liquor in a public place within 200 feet of a notice posted conspicuously in the public place. And it is the word minks, M-I-N-K-S, and I was like, I wasn't quite sure what that meant.
Is that something I provide that I typed? I hope not.
It's in there, and I guess I had a question around that particular piece altogether. So public drinking is prohibited in like all of our parks, on streets,
Correct. So where the signage
like
comes in.
College Street, Bates College area, they are not supposed to be, not just downtown here, but
Correct.
they're not supposed to be drinking in public either.
Yes, but let me explain a little bit something that's very important. A lot of these crimes, disorderly conduct, public drinking, criminal trespass, before we can charge somebody with any of those offenses, we must first give them a warning by law enforcement. So if I see you drinking, walking down the street, I would say, Councilor Scott, you can't be drinking on the street. If I catch you drinking on the street again, there's a likelihood or a possibility of you being charged. So without me giving you that warning, I can't just arrest you the first time I see you. But a warning is issued. They're advised to, empty out their alcohol, if you will.
So I guess I would ask, how is that monitored? How is that tracked to see? And I'm going to lead this into, so when you give a referral to a homeless person, if they're getting a warning, is what you're saying in here, and there's a referral for services, and if they refuse that referral for services, is this monitored how many times we have people refusing? Is it monitored how many times they're actually accepting services? And how often do they get a chance to say, they've been smoking marijuana in Dufresne Park, Officer Gagnon warned them, you cannot do that here. He comes back an hour later, they're still doing it. He comes back the next day, they're doing it again. What is the protocol on how many times?
There's no specific amount of time. There's not like, okay, two, 3 strikes, you're out. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt the first, maybe the second time. If they're being cooperative with us and, something like trespass, we might just move them along without having to actually enforce it by an arrest or a criminal citation. But when it gets to the point that somebody's being completely unruly or is becoming a danger to themselves or the public, we can't allow the fear of our citizens, to be dictated by their behavior, if you will. People should be safe or feel safe when they're walking through public property, a trail system, Kennedy Park, or any other park for that matter. rather than be accosted with drunken behavior and such. So if the behavior is that we feel an arrest is necessary, and our policy allows for officer discretion, and I think that's encouraged because not everything deserves an arrest. Not everything needs to end in an arrest situation. We can't arrest our way out of the problem. But if we do get to that point that we need to arrest somebody, it's still important for us to provide a resource and offer them the help that they need.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question, hopefully. We do track everything that we do, though. If there's a trespass warning at various locations, they're all documented in our system.
Okay.
If we go back a second time, it's also documented. So the officers will know that this person has been given 5 different warnings at 5 different locations. And then likelihood is, if he makes an arrest, he's going to put that in as an affidavit that, this person has been given several chances, has not abided by those chances or warnings, and has continued this behavior leading to his or her arrest.
Okay, so I appreciate Councilor LaChapelle asking if we're going to see a significant difference now that we've had the staffing that we need to fulfill these positions. So I would ask, have all of our officers been trained in this particular protocol on the homelessness, and when do you have a periodic review on this scheduled?
We actually just reviewed our policy and implemented a couple changes, and there's a section in there that's highlighted. I don't know if it shows up as highlighted on the copy you gave us, but it basically says that, after, an officer may arrest or charge somebody with an offense, but still is required to offer resources and is required to document basically why they felt an arrest was necessary in those 5 cases of the homeless crisis protocol.
Thank you. So I just want to state that, I'm asking these questions because I've had conversations with business owners. I've had conversations with residents that are concerned about walking through Kennedy Park, concerned about walking through Sunnyside neighborhood and on the Riverwalk Trail, that are concerned about still having issues with defecation behind the alleyway on Lisbon Street and these sorts of things. So I'm hoping that with the neighborhood first, that we're going to start seeing a change in some of this. It is disheartening to hear. And I personally, so I hear people say that there's no parking downtown, and they can't go to these businesses downtown because there's no place to park, which I think is a bunch of hooey, because I go downtown, I'll walk down there. I park in the Oak Street parking garage. It's very easy to walk through Dufresne Park and go to these different businesses. But when we even have a business that sells a substance, and they're complaining, and I got a phone call from them about people in front and doing unsavory things at their business, I feel like we need to really be stepping up on this. And that's going to lead me to my next question is, have you thought about, and would it be helpful to have some of this neighborhood first or office in the library, so you have somebody directly down there to help with some of this situation? Because as we get close to our conversation with the library, one of the things we're going to hear is that and we all got an email about this, is that there's a lot of issues with our library and people being concerned about going in the library. And it's a very big challenge for our staff. So I've always been of the thought, I see a police officer behind me, yeet. I mean, it's scary honest to God, even if it's you, I know, right? I get nervous and I slow down and I pay attention to what's going on, and I think that having that visibility, having somebody out there is extremely important to encourage the stopping of some of these situations and to build those relationships that are going to help stop those situations. So have you thought of that, or have you thought about putting like the hotspot back in place again?
I think we will periodically do some, if you want to call it hot spots, but really what that is getting officers out there so people see them. They know that we're going to enforce laws on a regular basis. We have them out there, like I said, with this Neighborhood First initiative. Really what that is us taking the action before people even have to call us. That's my goal, that's my intention. I think with our staffing being back up to normal levels, I think we can do it, and I'm very optimistic that it's going to become a better place. Do I have a crystal ball? No, but I can do the best I can. My officers, I can tell you, are very thorough. They're all on board. They're happy right now. We have enough people. They're not being forced for overtime necessarily, like they were in the past. They're dedicating themselves to the community and the citizens of Lewiston. I agree with what you're talking about with the library. I just heard today a concern that people used to love to go there and they don't like to go there anymore. That's concerning to me as your police chief. Very concerning to me. That is a place that people should go to be able to have quiet, a good quiet experience. And unfortunately, sometimes it's changed. And we're looking forward to hopefully changing that as well. That's part of our walking beat area where Officer Gagnon typically goes in. It doesn't end the problem. You know, I talk about balancing someone's rights. When we see somebody that might be unsightly or less than favorable to look at, it's not illegal to do that. I talk about panhandlers. We have a lot of business leaders that call reporting the panhandlers are out there, they don't like them. It's not illegal. We still have to, they still have rights. And we as the police have to abide by and appreciate that and, you know, make sure that we're not violating their rights.
And that I fully understand, because I do understand the panhandling situation, and I understand what the Supreme Court has said about that. But I will give an example that when I left here a few weeks ago, and I saw 5 people sitting on lawn chairs on Pine Street, right next to the library, and they were passing around something in a brown paper bag, and they were sitting there like it was a campfire. And I understand that, you know, we don't have a place for our homeless to go, but that is not something that I would want my mother to have to walk through in order to go to the library, and she goes to the library on a regular basis. So I think we have to weigh, you know, how we're treating these folks, but at the same time, making sure that our city stays a city where people are encouraged to go downtown, walk this city, because it is a walkable city. I mean, you can walk everywhere in minutes. And encourage businesses to come in, and we're encouraging economic development to tell our new businesses that we have this wonderful city to coming here. So I guess the last thing I would just like to add is that I hope that we have an update from you on a quicker basis than the last time we had you come in, because I think it's really important that the community sees what's being done, how effective this is, and everything that's happening around this whole program. And I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Agreed.
I just have one quick question. On the homeless protocol for Lewiston, it says an IMC event code of project support you is initiated. What
Right,
is
so
that?
everything that we
Is
do
that
is.
like a computer system, or?
Yeah, it's our IMC is our computer system,
Oh,
so
I
we
see.
document
Okay.
everything we do. For instance, if we're going on a foot patrol, we say, can you start me a foot patrol? I'll be out at Maple and Lisbon for the next 20 minutes or so, you know.
I see.
That would be an event that we start. Same thing with Project Support You, and then our Project Support You will go through their inbox and then follow up with each and every individual that we've sent them to follow up with.
Gotcha. Thank you. Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, I've seen some of the things that have happened since you've gotten back up to staff. I recognize, having been in the business, the tools that you have in your tool belt. You're about to lose one of those from the sounds, and that's public drinking. Our legislature is going to see fit, apparently, to reduce that to a civil infraction for which you can just ticket somebody. And there'll be a minimum, I believe a maximum fine of $100. Now, I don't think anybody on your force, from what I've seen, and I've seen a lot of it, uses that as an arrestable offense, unless it's egregious. And there are those that are egregious, people that couldn't tell you whether it's midnight or noon, the shape they're in, and they've been that way all day on the sidewalk or something. But is the Chiefs Association going after the legislature on things like this? There's an effort to reduce the level of some of these crimes.
Right, unfortunately, I was not aware of that particular one. I'm happy to look into it and see, and I would support not changing it from where it's at.
If it comes up before MMA's Legislative Policy Committee, I can assure you that I would speak against reducing it. But I think that maybe the Chiefs Association, maybe the Prosecutors Association, if they feel the same way, need to let their legislative delegation know. I'm sure you have a lobbyist, main chiefs, used to
Yes.
anyway, I'm sure they
Yes.
still do. So if you lose that, I would think that that would hinder you somewhat in your enforcement efforts.
I could certainly find out. I wasn't aware of the public drinking one. That's, you know, they're minimizing the standards or the penalties, but I will look into that. I know I'm following a few different LDs that are going through the system right now legislatively.
There's a pile of things in there to reduce make your job just that much more difficult, unfortunately. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Councilor Jelinas?
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief St. Pierre, for this report, and I share your optimism. I think it's important for our community to understand that being at 95% for your staffing is fairly new. So some of the changes that you talked about, it's going to take some time, but we're going to get there. So I do share that optimism. And I just wanted to comment that one of the things I appreciate about you and your team, and you have a tremendous team, is that you never really finish a sentence with we shoo them along. You always add that next part, which I think is really important, and I see that happening, and I appreciate that. So I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation and for everything you do. I just had one concern coming up with as you mentioned, the warming center is closing, and then the next day, the more strict loitering policy is taking effect. And I just wondered if you have any, if you've had talks about that in the department, or if you have any plan as far as like where folks will be able to go after that closes.
Right. As I stated before, when we moved people along from, like, for instance, the Sunnyside Park area last year, we didn't just go in there with a rogue attitude that we need to move you out of here and sorry, and just break it on them, quickly. We gave warnings. We talked to them much ahead of time before the scheduled, we need to have you out by this time. We gave them some time. When we went there, and we intend to continue to do that, when we go there to actually move people along that are refusing to leave, we're not just kicking them out or going to arrest them. We're bringing Project Support You with us. We're bringing our options program. We're bringing housing navigators with us in hopes to find them housing or whatever they need for resources. Now, bear in mind, we're the police, we get involved in a lot of social services and trying to make them referrals and point them in the right direction, but our primary goal is to protect and serve and to law enforcement. So no, I don't plan on going out there to just outright arrest people. It's not my intention. Unless things become out of hand, that there's a lot of litter, excrement, or what have you, we'll probably move them along, ask them to move along, go through this process a few times before they're actually physically arrested. I don't think we can arrest ourselves out of the problem. Do I think we need more resources in the state of Maine and the city of Lewiston? Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks for everything you're doing, Chief, and please tell your team thank you as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I just want to close by saying if you have any further comments, questions, feel free to email me at any time. I will answer those. I look forward to bringing a resolve to this, basically to say to you in 3 to 4 months, at the conclusion of the summer, I think our efforts have helped, or I know our efforts have helped, and here's why.
Yes.
That's my intention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, you too.
We are going to start back up in just a few minutes here.
You should burn right through this.
Hello, welcome to Lewiston City Council meeting. And we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe we have Kathy McDonald in the audience. And if you could please lead us, that would be great. This past week, we lost somebody special to the city of Lewiston, Jeannie Raymond. She was basically the grandmother of the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council, and then also the Public Works den mother. And so we will have a moment in silence, but before that, I would like to read this really quickly. Jeannie Raymond, a longtime Lewiston resident, passed away on Saturday, March 18th. She passed away at 86 years young, and those who engaged with Jeannie, her neighbors, the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council, Lewiston Public Works, other municipal staff, and church family did nothing but sing her praises. She loved Lewiston, its people, and she believed in the aspirations and the potential of everyone she met. She resided on No Name Pond. I don't, for our viewing audience at home, I don't think you'll be able to see it, but we have a view, I believe, from Jeannie's house there to the left of Councilor Jelinas. She resided on No Name Pond, and she was hugely instrumental in protecting water quality and surrounding land. In fact, the city of Lewiston recognized her environmental efforts in 2007. In Jeannie fashion, we wanted to thank her, but she wanted to thank the city. She presented the sitting mayor and city council with a beautiful framed photograph of No Name Pond that still hangs in the chambers today. Sorry. Yo, thank you. Mr. Gudis, you're amazing. Thank you very much. The photo and image by Arn Johnson of Ashland, Massachusetts. A photo credit there. From Public Works drivers to teens on the City Youth Council, she encouraged and applauded them, cooked them food, and attended their activities and supported their municipal undertakings. Her can-do attitude was infectious, and when she entered a room, it brightened. We extend our deepest sympathies to her family, friends, and neighbors, both here and out of state, and thank them for lending the talents of this amazing woman to the city of Lewiston. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now I understand we have Director Welsh here and from Rec, and then we have Alyssa Clark, the Recreation Coordinator. And just before we started here, Director Welsh was telling me that Alyssa Clark is the recipient, let's see if I got this right, of the Maine Recreation and Park Association. She's the recipient of the Young Professional of the Year Award. So this is exciting. If I can get you both to join me up here, that would be great. And now I think Director Welsh will be reading something.
I shall. Thank you. My name is Nicole Welch. I'm the Recreation Director for the City of Lewiston. I am honored to announce that Alyssa Clark, Recreation Coordinator, is the 2023 recipient of the Maine Recreation and Park Association Dr. Bill Eckhart Young Professional of the Year Award. This annual award is given to a rising parks and recreation professional in the state of Maine who has displayed outstanding performance on a community level through innovative programming, partnerships, and civic involvement. Coming to the city of Lewiston in August of 21, Alyssa has done just that. She has developed valuable partnerships with Healthy Androscoggin, Bates, and Lewiston High School, to name a few, which are all new to the Recreation Department. And they've all resulted in low-cost and free programs for our residents, supporting our mission of accessible, organized recreation and leisure access. Her approach to offering both traditional and non-traditional programs support a welcoming environment where families can confidently receive a fun, safe program. Alyssa is tasked with moving from a programmer to administrator throughout the day, wearing a variety of hats. From the 325 basketball players ranging from pre-K to grade 12, to 34 Safe Sitter program graduates in the last 10 months, and the 140 summer campers that come to Lewiston Recreation last summer, Alyssa builds trust within the community and sparks excitement with every conversation. She continues to weave positive municipal recreation and leisure traditions into the city of Lewiston. Almost all of the 140 programs that Lewiston Recreation offers ends up with waiting lists, which is no doubt because of her professionalism she brings to the department. Alyssa is an advocate for recreation, a cheerleader for her colleagues, and an absolute joy to work with every day. If the past 18 months are her getting her feet wet period in the big city, then the greater Lewiston community is in for a treat in the coming years. Please join me in congratulating Alyssa Clark, Maine Recreation and Park Association's 2023 recipient of the Young Professional Award.
And now we will move into Lewiston Leads, and I would like to bring Kathy McDonald to the front here. Thank you for coming this evening. I'll just have you stand right here, yep, yeah, we're good. Hello, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you this evening. I recognize Kathy McDonald for her incredible contributions to our community for over 40 years. And you look fabulous. Kathy has done it all, from serving on the board of the Androscoggin Historical Society, to being the president of St. Joseph's and St. Dom's Booster Clubs, to being a member of the foundation board at Androscoggin Home Care and Hospice, and chairing the event Autumn Night Out, ultimately raising over $500,000 for the organization. She is a role model for anyone aspiring to make a difference by volunteering or fundraising in the Lewiston-Auburn community. What she might be known for most is her involvement in the Liberty Fest since its beginning in 1997. Those incredible events and fireworks would not have been possible without her commitment to the city and her strong patriotism. When preparing for this recognition, she told me, "It is my way to give back to the city and those who have served for our freedoms." Kathy's dedication to our veterans and to building community is what makes her an invaluable leader in our city. As Mayor of Lewiston, I am beyond proud to present Kathy McDonald with the Lewiston Leads Award.
One more? Great. One. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're looking forward to amazing fireworks this year. Thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe we're ready to begin.
Yes, all roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Counselor of Ward 2. And we ask that you could bring the minutes forward to the next meeting. We didn't get a chance to email those to you in advance.
Thank you. And now we're up for public comment.
Yes.
Any member of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. This period is reserved for non-agenda items. Public comment is also allowed during individual agenda items. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Please state your name for the record, and please indicate if you are a Lewiston resident. Because this is the business meeting of the City Council, all questions should be directed to the mayor, who will ask staff to follow up at a future time. It is illegal for City Council to allow comments related to personnel matters. All personnel complaints should be made directly to the City Administration Office. Please head to the podium.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those who are still awake or going to fall asleep. My name is Brother Alfred. Some of you might see me on the internet, some might know me through passing. I am the CEO for the National Saving Fatherhood. I live out here in Lewiston, and I'm going to tell you first of all, I love your city. I was told to move here long ago, but I didn't pay attention. I should have. So I want to say thank you for allowing me to live in this beautiful city of yours, to the point that I think this would definitely be my retirement city. So I want to take this 3 minutes just to let you all know what we're doing here. We're at the final stage. We're trying to do either some kind of legislation or tempered beta testing for the National Saving Fatherhood. What I want to do is basically try to help the city to basically try to overcome. As you may not know, the statistics that we're in through Oxford colleges and then Harvard, even the UK, that statistic that among single fathers right now, the suicide rate has doubled across the world. Because of these things, there has been challenges across the fatherhood advocacy programs to try to come up with a solution. So Governor Santos, I'm not saying I'm a big fan of everything he does, but he passed the fatherhood bill. Now, I have a copy of it, and if anybody would like to talk to me more about it, I have 2 copies that I was able to print off, because it's 33 pages. But during that time, I want you to know that I'm here to help. I work with the Kennedys. I'm originally from Boston, so I'm a Boston kid. They used to call me administration, and Rocky Marciano's brothers, who were on the city council in Brockton, Massachusetts. You know? Yeah, I mean, so they know me real well up there. They nickname me the problem solver. So I'm basically here to let you know, maybe if anybody's has extra time, I know your schedules are big, we're looking for anyone who is willing to work with us, and so that we can maybe solve some of these issues. I heard some things today that definitely, I know some resources that can help increase revenue in the city. Also being able to have funding. You know, I'm also certified with the United States Chess Federation. So your school does not have a chess club, believe it or not. They can look at that as well. And I basically wanted to greet you and with that. And if you have any questions, like I said, I'm going to be here for the meeting. And I do have a copy of this bill and legislation. We could just pick at it and make it main and see what we can do here. I've talked to the mayor about it, and I'd love to talk to any of the city council about this issue. We got to make better fathers. We have situations, homelessness is going up because of this too. A lot of these people that you see that's in homeless situations, I've talked to them, most of them are fathers. So they don't even want to take a job. They can't take a job because as soon as they get income, those child support takes all that money, and they're still only making $35 a day, and they can't afford rent what the rent increases at. You know, and trust me, I've done the statistics, I've done the studies, I've broke the nights doing this, and I'm not like just like Mr. Bosley and them. I'm not just a client also. I'm the CEO, but I understand every point of it. So we are trying to find a place.
Excuse me, sir. I'm going to need you to wrap up your comments here.
Yes. So we're going to find a place. We're trying to look for an office out here in Lewiston now, so we can set up official offices. We have many programs. If you have any questions, go to nsfatherhood.org on the internet. You can see all our programs, everything we have. I thank you for your time. I conclude. Thank you.
If you have an extra copy, could you leave it with your fellow Boston? What is the demonym for Boston? Bostonite? Bostonian, thank you. If you can leave it with your fellow Bostonian, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Further public comment? Madam Clerk, I understand we have some people here for agenda item number 6. If it pleases the council, I would like to move that item forward.
Sure.
Oh, 6 is LA.
Well, I'm thinking about 6 right now, and if we need to move 7 forward too, then we can. But I'm specifically talking about the request for use of the city garage, I believe.
Sure, absolutely. Item number 6, resolve, authorizing Museum LA to use the Lincoln Street parking garage for a fundraising event. Requested action, to approve the resolve, authorizing Museum LA to use the Lincoln Street parking garage for a fundraising event.
May I have Councilor Pease, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Discussion? Public comment? Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counselor from Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Scott, did you think we need to move up agenda item number 7?
No, I didn't. I was,
Oh,
I was
okay.
confused. I'm sorry. It depends on if somebody's here.
Someone is here.
Right. Right. Is there somebody in the audience for agenda item number 7? Oh, okay. All right, Madam Clerk, agenda item number 7.
We're
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
I need to recuse myself on this because
oh,
it involves me.
okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, agenda item number 7.
Item number, excuse me, item number 7, authorization to permit a third party to upgrade the remaining portion of Rejane Street as outlined on the 1979 plan entitled Revision to Fern Court Estates and accepted as a public easement to city specifications at their own expense. Requested action, to authorize any future owner of the property at 186 College Street rear to upgrade the remaining portion of Rejane Street as outlined on the 1979 plan entitled Revision to Fern Court Estates and accepted as a public easement by the City Council on May 3rd, 2005 to city specifications at their own expense.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Councilor Harriman.
Second.
Councilor Jelinas. Director Hediger, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Ms. Silver's here, and I'm sure she'll want to speak as well about this matter. But it was in 2005, as the clerk mentioned, the city council took action on a section of paper street at the end of Rejane Street to make that a public easement. The intent that time of making it a public easement is that it would provide legal frontage to 816 College Street rear in order for it to be a developable lot. So it didn't have frontage before, it had access via paper street, but unless that street was actually accepted as a street or an easement, this lot did not have frontage. At that time, Mr. and Mrs. Silva were trying to sell the lot, approach developers looking at having it built with some type of use, and the council at that time decided to take action to make it a public easement. The action, though, was specific, and you folks have a copy of the minutes and the motions that were made back then, and it specifically referenced a public easement to authorize Alfred and Yvette Silva to upgrade this portion of the road to city specifications at their own expense. Mr. Silva has since passed. Yvette is the only one here at this point, and really from a technical perspective, this action that was taken probably doesn't really give her the ability to upgrade that street to a public easement. Not only does it give her the ability, but any third party. You'll see in your packets you have a legal opinion from the city attorney back in 2005 that actually recommended that at the time it should be that any third party have the ability to upgrade this street out there, not necessarily be specific to the Silvas at that time. So Ms. Silvas is now, again, she's been marketing the property. She can explain the situation as it stands right now, but really I think this is more of a clarification than anything, just to make it known that anybody can in fact upgrade that to city specifications. And it's just that, it would have to be to city approval, so they would end up working with the engineering department, make sure that it meets all of our standards as far as road construction goes, And assuming they do that, they give us the appropriate documents, performance guarantees to make sure it's built out correctly, then they can proceed with constructing out the street.
Director Hediger, I'm sorry, anything else?
Not this time.
Okay. And you worked for the city at that time, correct?
I did.
Okay. Discussion from the council? Public comment?
Good evening, Bob McCarthy, 34 Rejane Avenue. I want to give you a little history on this. This has been an area of irritation and frustration for the 30-some-odd years I've lived on Rejane Avenue. I bought in '86. At the time, I was told it was a dead-end street, which I come to find out it wasn't. But I was assured by the planning department that nothing could happen on that paper street unless the two abutters, myself and 33 Rejane Avenue, agreed to it being developed. In the early '90s, the Silvers sent around a letter to everybody that had property along Rejane Avenue that backed up to her property, basically telling them that unless they bought the land behind their house at a somewhat elevated rate, that she was going to develop and we were going to have houses in our backyard. And I took offense to that because it seemed like it was blackmail. But hey, so be it. Over the course of the next 10 or 12 years, we had several people come by and say, well, I want to buy that land and I'm going to put in a street here. And I said, no, you can't. Well, yes, I can. So I approached now Director Hediger, and he assured me several times that they cannot put a street in without your permission, or you and the person across the street. Fine. I think the last time I spoke to him was in 2003 or 2004. We go to 2005, this appeared on the city agenda. The abutters were not notified, so we had no idea this was coming before the city council so that we could give our piece. And one of the things that they use for justification of putting a public easement in is that the city plows the snow onto that property so that it's, in effect, they're using it as an easement, so that's why they put the public easement in. I can guarantee you that they don't. They snowplow the snow onto my property. I've got the gouges in the lawn, and I've got the crumbling driveway from the trucks going over it to tell you that. There's trees right at the edge of the street. There's a 20-ton boulder that would prevent them from going. So anyway, 2005, this comes before the council. They pass it. Forward to 2000, one of the things that the Director Hediger told me that it was highly unusual for the city to put in a public easement and give specific development rights to an individual. That came right from Director Hediger. Anyway, 2012, I get a panic call from my wife that the city is out there marking off the street and they're going to clear cut so that the Silvers can cut trees down on their property and bring it along Rejane Avenue. So I came down there and spoke with the director, spoke with the forester that was going to do the property, and thank God he was reputable, and he said, look, I don't want to do anything until we get this taken care of. What she was doing is she was using trying to use her special permission given by the city council to develop it to justify cutting the trees down. And basically when the city did the public easement, it usurped the rights of the two abutting landowners by putting in a public easement and taking our rights away from us. Anyway, I appeared before the city council, and the city council reiterated that she had to put in a street. She couldn't just cut the trees down. So it's been a source of irritation for the whole time that I've been there. And what I'd like to do is just take off that special permission that she was given and just leave it as it is. There's a public easement on it, and follow the state rules on any public easement. It's backlot property. It was backlot property when she acquired it. So by removing her rights does not diminish the value of the land when she bought it. In fact, the city putting the public easement in enriched her at the expense of the neighborhood. I'm told by Director Hediger, you could put as much as you couldn't, but theoretically, you could put as many as 50 housing units in there. So can you imagine a quiet dead-end street with a dozen or so houses on it, and then you extend it and you get 50 housing units driving their traffic along there. She has access to this land through her property at 832 College Street. So for some reason, she couldn't use the paper street at Rejane Avenue. She could develop it through her property, which diverting the traffic from 30 or 40 or 50 housing units directly onto College Street rather than a dead-end neighborhood would be much better. Thank you.
Ms. Silva, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. I don't know what he's talking about. I have not.
Do you mind just, do you mind just moving the mic a little, move it down just a little bit closer to
Is
you?
that better?
You can bend it down.
You can bend it down.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not quite sure what Mr. McCarthy is talking about because I've not ever had any of that information that he's talking about. Originally, the Coultermouse that developed that entire area had an agreement with the city to finish that street, to finish that development. It was never 816 College. It was supposed to have been the continuance of Rejane. And so we had no idea of all of this when we bought the house next door, or next to it. We didn't realize that that development ceased because Mr. Coultermouse, something happened to him. But I think you have a lot of that information in your packet. I did, in fact, someone, Tom Maynard, had brought a friend. He worked for the city and brought a friend, and he wanted to buy that property. Originally, we had no intention of selling it. But he was interested in developing it, and Mr. McCarthy somehow managed to destroy that. And we've had others that were interested in that property, but because of that Rejane never being finished, and to put in a street off of 832, my house sits directly in the middle. There's not enough room on either side. So that road has to come from Rejane. And he had insisted that we put the cost in to finish the road, and I said, well, we don't have the money, so nothing went anywhere. But we agreed. So the city, or the councilor, decided that in 2005, that we had permission to finish that street. Well, my husband and I didn't have that money, so it didn't go anywhere. But after he passed, I thought, well, if I pass, then my kids get it, but it's specifically named for my husband and I. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If they wanted to do anything with it, they can't because it's in my husband and my name. So the only thing that I did was I contacted my lawyer and I talked to Dave and I said, it only makes sense to put a third person for that property to develop because I can't do it. And it seems a shame that since the city of Lewiston needs a lot of housing, that would be a perfect area. I can't put the street in, but maybe the next person can. And as far as contacting them, this is the first time, by the way, that I've ever met Mr. McCarthy, never spoke to him on the phone. I sent him a letter because I thought, well, he won't let me develop. Why don't they be interested in buying the lot or the land behind their property? In return, I got an answer and said, well, why should we pay for that and pay taxes when we can use it for free? I was, just unbelievable. I couldn't imagine anyone saying that. But we are today, legally, all I'm asking is that you change the title for third person to develop that property if they so choose. If they buy it or whatever. I can't do it. But legally, I need that name changed. Thank you.
Back to the council. Councilor Jelinas?
So I just want some clarification, Director Hediger. The requested action isn't really about, I mean, this was voted on in 2005, I understand that. But it's really about this name change that Mrs. Silva's referring to.
Yeah, and to Mr. McCarthy's point, and it may be a question for the city attorney, even if the board didn't take the action, my understanding is that because the city now holds the easement out there, the cities are really the only ones who can act to build that street. So anybody could come in here. Whether it references the Silvers or not, I think it would be in the city's best interest. If the language was removed that it didn't even reference the Silvers there, I still believe that then at any point, if somebody approached the city, they could potentially say, I want to build out the remaining portion of the street here. And if they did it to the specifications, it could occur. I think it's really, I don't want to say it's semantics, but I think it's important because of the way it was worded that one could argue that, no, it's really just the Silvers that can do this at this point here. And she had asked me for a letter of support because they're actually interested in auctioning the property. And that's part of the reason why we're here this evening, because I wasn't comfortable giving a letter of support based upon the action that was specifically taken in 2005.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Councilor Arman?
Thank you. Is there a deed or legal document or anything that outlines that agreement that was mentioned with the abutters? I know it's maybe not specifically relevant to this action, but it's sort of tangentially.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The agreement that Mr. McCarthy mentioned with himself and the other abutting property owner, that their permission would be needed to develop the property. Is that just a verbal agreement, or is there a deed, or?
I'm not aware of a document. Maybe Mr. McCarthy knows. I would agree with what he said prior to the action in 2005. I would have said it's highly, they would have had to get either, paper streets are a mess. And the story usually is, we don't know who owns them, and we don't. Someone has to demonstrate to us who has right title or interest into the street out there. And typically there's state law that talks about even after a certain amount of time, it can revert to the abutters, in this case, the McCarthys, and I'm not sure who the other person would be. So short of this action that was taken in 2005, and he's right, this is somewhat unique. I'm not sure that the council has done something like this in the past. Certainly in my tenure, it's the only time we've done something like this. But if there's some other type of agreement out there, I'm not aware of it.
Thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Hediger, in 2005, was there no requirement to notify the abutters of a potential change of use of to make it a right-of-way? Was it required for them to notify the abutters before the council took action?
I don't know that there is. Certainly from a zoning and land use code perspective, the ordinance is silent to this whole discussion. Our office was only involved really from a zoning and land use perspective at that point. I mean, you'll see my name throughout this, but it was also the director at Public Works that was helping assist through this process. I don't know that there is any specific requirements for notifying abutters, though.
So let's say it happens today, that somebody might have a development someplace that wants to extend into another parcel of land. Would that developer be required to go in front of notify the neighbors of a road going in? I
don't believe so. There's public rights and private rights to a road, and if the city, the public rights, the city could go out and build out any public street. I'm oversimplifying this, but the city could go and build any paper street right now as a matter of right. Those are the public rights. And then the private rights, presumably, or whoever actually owns that street out there. It could be the original heirs to the subdivision. It could be the abutters. We don't know whose rights those are. But if somebody came in and said, I'm going to build out this paper street in a subdivision, we wouldn't require any type of notification for that. The development review maybe of that subdivision where the lots are gonna now be accessed and that the approval process of that subdivision would trigger it, but not necessarily just the road itself.
Wow.
If I may, Councilor LaChapelle. So I understand what you said, Director Hediger. So the ordinance is silent, but I guess what would be common practice? Like if that were to happen today, you're saying that you would not be notifying abutters, or you would, the planning board or the planning and zoning department would notify abutters?
Planning and code enforcement really doesn't get involved in the acceptance of streets. It's really been a public works matter because they have to communicate with public works. As far as I know, there is nothing in ordinance that says anything about requiring notice to abutters. I think probably just by default, abutters would get notified because there's probably construction associated with that of a subdivision. Again, this was a unique situation because they weren't doing anything more than just extending the public easement that a certain distance. What probably would be more realistic is a developer or somebody came forward and said, hey, I want to build out the 70 feet of Rejane Avenue, and I'm going to extend it another 1,500 feet in there to build 50 house lots. Yeah, then everybody would be notified of that process. But just to accept a section of a paper street as an easement, I'm not aware of any requirements.
So is that because it is a paper street? Or if I was looking at a new piece of parcel altogether and I wanted to put a road through it, would the abutters be notified if that's the case?
Yes, because then you'd be going through a development review process. You'd be changing the use of that property, you're creating a road, you're creating new lots, we'd be going through the planning board, notification to all the abutters then. In this case, you have an established paper street from whatever the subdivisions were, 1970s here. It's on paper.
This is going around the mountain, bear with me just for a second. I noticed a little while ago we started eliminating some of these paper streets in the city of Lewiston. Are we actively trying to do that again? Because it's
Just the opposite.
just the opposite.
So it's actually referenced in this memo, and the council took action in I knew you were going to ask this. I should have looked it up. The legislature took action back in 1987, I think it was, for municipalities basically to make a decision on paper streets, the whole public rights and private rights discussion I was talking about. And at that time, there was actually a streets committee, and they were going through the entire process as to whether or not we want to maintain rights in these paper streets. Some of them we probably do. They may access pieces of land that are readily developable. Other of them go off a cliff into a wetland. They're never going to see any development. This was being pushed by throughout the state. Municipalities were struggling with it. A bill was passed that basically said if the elected officials take action, they can delay action on this for 20 years. So that brought us to 2017. 2017, all municipalities in the state, again, we're going to have this discussion. What happened? Bill was amended to say, hey, punt it out another 20 years. That's what the council did. The council said we're not going to take any action on these streets at this point. So we have another 20 years, 37, I guess, 2037, in order until we actually have to decide what we want to do with these paper streets.
Just feels kind of wrong that neighbors aren't notified on something like that. It just, on the face, confusing, yes, just seems wrong. And that, just a comment. Thank you.
Councilor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Hediger, did I hear you say that you could put in 50 house lots in there on this plot?
So Mr. McCarthy mentioned that because he asked some information about, what could potentially go on this lot. It's about 23 acres. There's a pretty big wetland on the back side of this. I can pull it up on the GIS if you guys are interested. So realistically, if you had 23 acres of high and dry land, given the zoning out there, yes, you could do 50 house lots. Realistically, you're not going to get 50 houses out there just because of wetlands, slopes, area taken up by the right-of-way of the street. How many lots exactly, I'm not sure, but I tried to paint, best worst-case scenario.
Okay, worst case scenario, 50, best case scenario, maybe 30?
Maybe. I
Maybe.
mean, more work needs to be done to
I
determine.
guess what I'm getting at is, this would be a one-way street. It'd be a dead-end street going into that development unless somebody really built out and around further back to College Avenue, or
That's correct.
I just can't see adding another 30 houses, and they're given the size of Rejane Avenue and the present condition of Rejane Avenue. I would think the rest of that would need to be beefed up a little bit. That's just my personal take on it. The fact that nobody was notified of all this, I mean, I've been involved in one other action since being on the council of a previous council that had to do with outer Lisbon Street and forcing people who put in commercial developments out there to pay a portion of widening outer Lisbon Street to a 5-lane highway, I believe it was.
Yep.
And a gentleman went to put in a place out there. He found out about this action and was told conceivably, well, you're probably going to have to pony up somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. This is just to widen the street. So we as a body, I think, looked at that and said, gee, the daily trips on that section of road have decreased. I don't know what 30 houses additional on Rejane Street is going to put in there for daily trips for traffic. Certainly going to increase it. And I think out of deference to the people that are in there now, that this would require some very careful deliberation before we would approve it. That's it, Mr. Mayor. I thank you.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So a couple of questions, and I'm hoping that with the picture, you can help me ascertain where I'm at here. So Rejane,
Excuse me, at this point, I think it might be helpful just to bring it up on the, yeah,
Thank you.
just so that way we're all clear. Thank you, Councilor Scott.
This one? Is that the one we're talking about?
yes.
Okay.
You're a wizard, Director Hediger. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can you show us at the same time 832 College?
That's what
where
I
it
was going to
relates?
ask. I wanted to see how this relates to going in.
So, and Yvette can correct me, but I believe this is your Yvette Silva's house here?
Right.
Yeah, so that's where Yvette Silva's, and her property, do I got a better pointy thing here? Not really.
There's a-
But her lot is this right here, so she has this long, deep lot that contains a single-family home.
And is that 816 College Street?
816 College Street rear, the parcel in question is the one that's highlighted in red. You asked about 832. 832 is this lot over here.
Okay.
Please, sorry, one last question for me. Can you please point out the two abutters?
This is Mr. McCarthy's property here, and I don't know who that is, but that would be the other abutter there.
So I guess my question is, when we're looking at College Street going down here, what I'm asking is, would we not put the road in from College Street? Rejane, I've never been out there, so I'm not sure where is the access to Rejane from down here?
Let's do this. Give me a second. Where am I?
It's a dead-end street that's in there now.
Okay.
Somebody wants to buy that, they can.
So this is College and Stetson Road down here.
Yeah.
Going up College Street, I turn into Lemieux, I turn into Rejane.
Okay. So we're looking at, so part of this conversation is to put the easement through Rejane in there instead of putting it on College Street. If somebody was going to do a development, that seems a little
So you
odd
can
to me.
barely see, maybe if I do this. See this,
what I
it
was
showed up just for a second, but there's this faint line here. That's a temporary cul-de-sac that's shown in your applications as well on one, I think it's Fern Estates Revision 2. So the subdivision had this temporary turnaround there. This street has been accepted to essentially here. This is the extent of the pavement. And in 2005, the city accepted an easement, I think you have that language as well, for 70 feet for this remaining distance here.
To go in there, and then if they were going to build into the 816 rear, would go that way,
Right.
up into
So-
the property.
So the issue was at the time that in order for this to be a developable lot, it needed to have frontage. In order to have frontage, you have to have a city-accepted street or city-accepted public easement. this lot that may have had access, through a paper street, but you couldn't actively market it as being a developable lot because it did not have frontage on a city-accepted street or an easement.
And who owns those other two pieces of property? You don't have to give names, but that's somebody different than the parties we're speaking of today?
It's all public, so yeah, CMP owns one of those, and then whoever these folks are on the other. And I want to say, it might not show up on here.
Is there CMP lines out there?
I think there's a small corridor out there. It's not like a big transmission line, but it's like your typical telephone pole type.
So CMP owns that empty lot that somebody could put an easement there to put a road in? I'm just asking.
I suppose they could get an easement from CMP for a right-of-way across this property to gain access. I think this lot's pretty wet, if I remember right. I know this lot is wet. I'm not sure about this lot. This whole area along College Street, if you guys have driven out there before, it's
Kinda wet out
it's
there.
pretty wet and
Yeah.
low, yeah.
Okay, so going back to the first page of this agenda item, and it says specifically the information that the 2005 City Council motion was specific to Mr. and Mrs. Silva. Now, I understand that Mr. Silva passed, and I'm sorry to hear that. But what was just said there was, are we looking just for the name change, or are we looking to continue with the 2005 plus the name change? Because I understand a name change so that her family has the opportunity, it's not with somebody else on that piece of property, so that if she passes, but I guess I don't understand why we would continue something from a 2005 City Council motion that was specific just to the Silvas. I question that a little bit, and I'm not sure, and I don't want to cause any tension, but I'm curious about that.
I can try.
I guess,
to- sorry.
if
Do you
I may
understand what
ask-
I'm saying?
No, I understand what you're saying. And if I can ask a clarifying question, so was it the intention of the council at that time to limit it to just the Silvas, or that's just an unfortunate byproduct of the wording?
I don't know, and that's why you folks have a copy of the minutes at that time as well, because I don't recall being at that meeting. I didn't necessarily have involvement other than from the outside, so I can't tell you what their intent was. I can tell you what the legal opinion was at that time, and it referenced any third party as to why they changed it, the council, to Mr. and Mrs. Yvette Silver. I don't know exactly. But I've since reached out to the city attorney having this, and they felt that it would be prudent for the council to take action just to clean that up. Whether it references the Silvas or not, just to remove that reference and go with any third party, because quite frankly, that's what can happen out there. The city has already accepted the public easement. You can almost argue the damage is done as far as there's a public easement out there. Now it's just a matter of who's going to build that out.
So,
Can you, just to clarify what you said, the damage is done. Like, can you explain that comment
The
really
public
quick?
easement, the council's already accepted a public easement out there. There is access to this lot out there now.
Okay.
So it's a matter of just somebody coming forward with a specific plan to say, Public Works, I'm gonna build out a street that meets all of your standards, and I'm gonna put it across this section of public easement. If it meets all those standards, they meet all of our design standards and whatnot, then Public Works is gonna say, great, go forth. And ultimately, they'll come back to you, and that will no longer be a public easement, but then would be a public street like the rest of Rejane Ave.
Sorry, Councilor Scott, please
so
continue.
that means it's a done deal. No matter what we decide, it's done. We can't change the fact that that's a public easement, and that if Mrs. Silver, even if she changes the name and sells this piece of property, that anybody that buys that can build on that and build a road there.
I believe that's the case, other than the council was specific to the Silvas at that time out there, and the attorney felt that it was prudent for the council to clean that up in the event that someone questioned, well, it's not Mr. and Mrs. Silva anymore, it's David Hediger, and does he really have the rights to do that? I think the city attorney's gonna tell you it doesn't really matter necessarily.
You think, or do we know for sure?
I think, I don't know for sure.
And I guess then I would have to find out for sure. And I'm only saying that because I'm very uncomfortable with making a decision on something that has such specific language from 2005 without absolute for sure from what our city attorney says. That would be my personal opinion on this.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Councilor Scott. I think feedback from the city attorney, because if I'm understanding what you're asking, if I'm understanding what you're saying, so we could pass this, or yes, we could grant that another party have access, or it would continue, but it would likely be challenged and then lose. Is that what you're implying?
I don't think so.
But it's just, it would clean it up.
Yeah.
Mr.
So,
Mayor, if you pass this, it would clean it up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. If we didn't pass it,
Correct.
is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Like.
right.
It leaves the ambiguity still.
Right. And you're saying the attorney would likely be in the developer's favor, if I'm saying that right, to develop that street.
I think the matter is clouded given the specific action
Okay.
that the council took in 2005. And it's a lot cleaner if it does not reference anyone specifically, but that it just references a third party. That way it provides that ability to anybody out there. That was the intent. Again, I say that was the intent. That was the recommendation that was provided by the city attorney in 2005. The action clouds that. And I'm not even sure that it really even matters, but again, the attorney mentioned, and to Councilor Scott's point, I mean, we can get more clarity on that. But his response to me was that the most prudent course for the Silvas would be to ask for an action with respect to any future owner of the property who is willing to construct the improvements to city standards.
You're referencing a conversation that you've had recently.
Correct.
Okay. You're saying the city attorney has rendered an opinion that we should pass this?
Yes.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
As of February 22nd, I've talked to the city attorney about this.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councilor Scott?
It does. I'm not, I don't know. I understand what the city attorney is saying, but I feel like we're making a decision that would be the future for that whole particular area. I would like to hear from others, please.
No, we will do just that. Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you. I feel like I keep dummying this down a little bit, so pardon me, I'm going to ask probably the same question in a different way. I feel like we're getting caught up in talking about easement and that kind of thing, and that's a done deal. I feel like this action item, maybe I'm just not understanding this. When I read it, what I thought this action item was about was simply, so right now, this property is tagged to Mrs. Silva. And all she's asking for here is that it not be her name on it, but it be a third party or something. That's what I think the action is.
Correct.
Okay. But I feel like we're talking a lot about other stuff that really had happened in 2005, and if there was going to be a change of what happened in 2005, that would be coming to us differently, which is why I think the attorney's recommendation is that we pass this, because it's that simple. It's not, we're not getting into how the land's going to be used, how it's going to have an impact on the residents. That's how I'm understanding this when I read it.
I would agree with you. I mean, I think if we're concerned about the development of the lot out there, that's going to be something that's going to be handled by the planning board at that point, where they're going to be looking at traffic, wetlands, slopes, all of those types of things out there. They would come forward with likely at that point, because they're going to need to extend a street into this property as part of the design of that street. They're going to show the design of the 70-foot public easement to city street standards at that point. All the abutters within 300 feet would then receive notice of what's going to occur out there.
Councilor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director, this 70-foot section of Rejane, the extension, if that is changed, it would allow Mrs. Silver or whoever purchases 816 rear, that would become their access to that property. So anything they developed out there theoretically would be emptying onto Rejane?
Correct, unless they gained access through another parcel.
Yeah. That disturbs me a little bit, because I don't see a large development going in off the end of that street. I know we need housing and everything like that, but theoretically also, if the sale of this land were to take place, whoever purchases that land could approach the city with a plan to do something with it, right?
Absolutely.
And they'd have to go before the planning board?
Yep. I think the concern here is, again, what triggered this was Ms. Silva's looking for a letter as part of the sale of this property that they got the rights to move forward with that public easement out there to upgrade it to city standards. Arguably, they probably do, but again, because of that specific action that was taken in referencing Mr. and Mrs. Silva, it's cloudy, right? Mr. Silva is not here with us at this point.
This is what we have courts for, in my estimation. I don't know that we need to be deciding something like that, so. Thank you.
Councillor Pease, did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I know you're not the Director of Public Works, but my question, isn't there a minimum width for a road?
Yes, it depends on the number of house lots on it. So you can do up to 10 house lots on a narrower road. I want to say it's 24 feet. And then after that, the road is wider with respect to the amount of pavement and the width of the shoulders on it as well.
Because it just looks like that road where it ends is really close to the property line. And I didn't know if they had enough room even to get a road in that way.
Yeah, so the existing right-of-way out there is 50 feet wide, which is typical. That's what the city looks for new streets. Right. So anywhere within that 50 feet is where you would actually build your road then. So short of maybe an industrial park, we are not paving 50 feet wide of pavement. Within that 50 feet, there will be, whatever it may be, 24, 26 feet of pavement out there. I'd have to look at the specific standards, but it's going to be something in that ballpark where we have a width of a road for 2 travel lanes. Again, depending on the number of homes, maybe there's paved shoulders, maybe there's gravel shoulders out there. But the idea with that 50 feet is it accommodates the road, underground utilities if there's going to be any, stormwater improvements, sidewalks. You're not going to put sidewalks out here, but that's the idea of having that width of right-of-way out there. So I would say with confidence, it's plenty wide enough to put a road out there that could handle the amount of traffic that's going to be developed out there. Whether that's desirable or not, that's another question.
Yes, but in order to build it, you say they need at least a minimum of 200-foot frontage.
I would need to check. Not in this zoning district. I believe this is zoned medium density residential. And I don't know what the frontage is off the top of my head, but I can tell you it's less than 200. It's more than 100 and less than 200.
Right. I think myself personally that anybody that's going to do anything out there has to come to the planning board regardless. And they have to meet these standards. And then the city council either approves or disapproves it, correct?
With respect to the street, correct. And that comes upon a recommendation from the Director of Public Works. So you're not going to, I would find it hard to believe that you would have a situation where a developer comes in and asks for a road to be accepted contrary to a Public Works recommendation.
All right, thank you.
Well, sorry, one second. Administrator Hunter, if there are, I realize that Director Hediger spoke to the attorney, but if there are lingering legal questions, could this perhaps be tabled to a time when the attorney could be present? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, we can most definitely table it and either ask the questions or send us questions and we can have that. It would be better to have those questions in advance, even if he is present, to determine or give him ample time to do research that's needed.
Of course. Thank you. Councilor Herman.
Thank you. It seems to me like we have heard from the city attorney recently, and this is what he recommends. To me, not knowing about this item other than what I read in the packet, given the great need for housing in the city and the great need for development that we want to see, and the reputation that we've gotten for being not the easiest, possibly anti-development, it seems to me that we would want to do what we can to make to clear up this legal ambiguity so that somebody could develop this, especially into housing, which seems like what it would be used for, because that's such a great need here. So, yeah, I would support clearing this up so it can be developed.
I'm going to recognize Councilor Scott. Then it looked like you had something to say, Councilor McCarthy, and then we'll also give Ms. Silva a chance to chime in as well. But Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So just for clarification, Councilor McCarthy showed me a picture at the end of the street that he had on his phone. That's why he came up here. I don't want anybody to think, I feel that probably shouldn't have been done, but I just want to clarify that that's what that was. Now, I don't want to believe this. I don't want to keep going on this, but in my opinion, and in everything I've done with this city, including contracts, language is everything. Language is everything. And the language here, which is why the only reason I'm having a hard time is that it says specific to Mr. and Mrs. Silva. That's where I'm having a particular problem with this issue, and I can't just let that go. I'm sorry, but I've seen little pieces of language from this to was, and there's this little ambiguity there that can completely bring us to the lawyer in the future. So I'm very sorry, but I am having a hard time saying yes to this. That's where I'm at right now.
Councilor McCarthy.
One of the things I wanted to point out with what Director Hedeker said about the attorney's opinion, the attorney's opinion is what...
Yeah, thank you.
The attorney's opinion is what the Silvas should do. It's not what the city council should do. It's what the Silvas should ask the city council to do, not what they should do. So you have to take that into account. There's a little bit of semantics there. This is, the city council gave the opinion on what the Silvas should do to clear up the ambiguity or to clear up the authority or whatever. My feeling is my rights were taken away when the city put in a public easement there without even talking to me, without even letting me know that it was coming before the council. And then they tried to use those rights to log across that land against what the city council had given them authorization to do. So where it's specific, the attorney said what the Silvas should do, nothing in there about what the McCarthys should do, or what the Plavics should do, or what any of the other neighbors should do. Honor exactly what the council said, specific to the Silvers, and it ends with them. And that's what I ask. Thank you.
Ms. Silva, would you like an opportunity to say something else at this time?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Clement.
I ask we move the question.
I'm sorry, what was that, Councilor LaChapelle? Well, here's my, if I may, Councilor
Certainly.
Clement. I guess my suggestion at this point, Director Hedeker, I understand you spoke with the attorney, and and I believe you, and in your recollection of that conversation, there seems to be some lingering questions, and without a written document from the attorney of his opinion, I think at this point I would recommend to the council that we table it, submit some questions to the city attorney, and then have him present the next time that this is on the agenda, and that way we can clear this up. That would be my recommendation to the council.
I would support that.
I have a motion before the council, Mr. Mayor. Second or not for that. If there isn't, then it dies, but.
Yes, Madam Clerk, can you please repeat the motion?
So I apologize. So Councilor McCarthy made a motion to move the question. but
Councilor
I-
Clement.
I'm sorry, thank you. Apologize. Councilor Clement made a motion to move the question, but I did not hear a second. So if there was a second, I'm sorry, I did not hear that. And then the mayor was recommending to postpone this matter to the next meeting. And Councilor Jelinas said that she would be happy to support that. But again, I haven't heard a second for either one, so I wasn't sure.
We have Councilor LaChapelle seconded it,
I'm sorry, to postpone until the next?
or to move the question.
Move the question. Thank you, I apologize. So it's been moved and seconded to move the question, which would mean that we would then stop debate and go for a vote to move the question. It would need to pass by a 2/3 vote. So to move the question, Counselor from Ward.
Sorry, if I can interrupt for a second.
Sure.
With Councilor McCarthy recusing himself, am I voting in this case?
Yes, because he's recusing himself due to a conflict of interest.
Okay, and this is now a vote to move the question.
Correct, which would
Thank
need
you.
to stop additional discussion, and then if that
To
passes,
vote.
we would go to an immediate vote on the pending question printed in your book.
Okay, please commence the vote to
Thank
move
you.
the question.
Counselor from Ward 3,
No.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
No.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
No.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 to,
3.
yeah, hang on a second. I think it has to do, I think it needs to do because it's taking right from there. So the motion to actually close debate needs a 2/3 vote in order to pass because it's taking rights away from the membership, rights away from the body. So a 4-3 vote would not be a 2/3 vote. So it appears that the motion would fail because it did not receive a 2/3 vote.
Madam Clerk, would I be able to make a motion in this case, since I'm also voting?
Um, We're referencing the language in the charter, Mr. Mayor, and it does say, it references voting. It does not say initiating an action via a motion.
Thank you, thank you. Councilor Jelinas?
I'd like to make a motion that we table this, this item until the attorney can be present, and we have an opportunity as councilors to submit questions to the city administrator for more clarification.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Sure, I'm sorry, just a second here. So I apologize, Counselor Jelinas and Counselor Harriman, and the motion is to postpone action to the next meeting so the city attorney can be present. Thank you very much. Counselor from Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
No.
Ward 5,
No.
Ward 6,
No.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
No.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion failed by a vote of 4-3.
And we're now back at the original question, Madam Clerk?
Yes, that's pending before you, the one that's printed in your book. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further comment from the council before we go to a vote? Madam Clerk, please call that vote.
So, and again, the motion was moved by Counselor Harriman, seconded by Counselor Jelinas. So again, it's the motion printed in your book. Counselor from Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
No.
Ward 5,
No.
Ward 6,
No.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
No.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion failed by a vote of 3-4.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor LaChapelle?
Might I suggest, we're going to be moving on to our agenda items 1 through 6,
Indeed.
where they're all the final passage. Are we able to lump those all together in one reading?
I believe this question has been asked before, and I would say no, and I am not comfortable with that.
Plus, there's public hearings
There's
on
public
each
hearings
one.
as well.
Can't have a public hearing on all of them.
We will move as quickly as possible here. Director Hediger. Yeah, no, there we go. Madam Clerk, we will proceed with them one at a time.
Great.
And we are now ready. Sorry, give me 1 second. Are we ready to proceed, or do we need to take a brief recess? Okay, wow, full steam ahead. Madam Clerk, agenda item number 1.
Item number 1, public hearing and final passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 2 definitions. Requested action that the proposed amendments to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 2 definitions receive final passage by a roll call vote.
May I have a motion? Counselor LaChapelle, followed by Counselor Peace. And I'm going to public comment first for this. And we're now closed public comment. Director Hediger, anything you'd like to say to kick us off?
Unless you,
Hey, Counsel, thank you.
no,
Please
unless there's
proceed, Director
any
Hediger.
specific questions that you folks would like me to address, not at this time.
Discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7.
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 2.
Item number 2, public hearing and final passage for an amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 3 Official Map. There are 3 items for requested action. The first one, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 3 Official Map as shown on proposed zoning Area A map, Option 2, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Counselor Harriman, seconded by Counselor Clement. Director Hediger?
The only thing I would note, and it's up on the screen right now, is given the action that you took, we had a lot of discussion on this. I don't know that we don't want to have that again. The Martell School property, where we landed was that it would remain office residential. The other changes, as shown on all of the maps, Area A, B, and C, received approval.
I'm opening this up for public hearing, and now I'm closing the public hearing. Discussion from the council. So Director Hediger, am I to understand that an affirmative vote would keep it, and
Keep it office residential.
yes? Okay.
Correct.
Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0. Second item, item number 2, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 3, Official Map as shown on proposed map, Area B map, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
Second.
Second.
Councilor LaChapelle, seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Director Hediger?
Nothing to add. It's, what's on the screen is what you folks acted on last time.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we need to go to public hearing for all 3 of these?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, we're now going to public hearing for this. And now we're back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 3, I'm sorry, Ward 2,
Yes.
sorry, Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0. Third item, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 3, Official Map as shown on the proposed zoning Area C map, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
May I have a motion? Councilor,
Second.
Councilor Peace, seconded by Councilor Harriman. Director Hediger,
Again, no changes other than what's shown on the map.
public hearing. Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Item number 3.
Item number 3, public hearing and final passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 6, Nonconformance. Requested action, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 6, Nonconformance, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
May I have a motion? Councilor LaChapelle, seconded by Councilor Harriman. Director Hediger?
This section just deals with nonconformances, which which are referred to as grandfathered uses, grandfathered lots. It's trying to provide some additional clarification where we felt that would be necessary.
Thank you, Director Hediger. Public hearing for this, and back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Item number 4, Madam
Item
Clerk?
number 4, public hearing and final passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 11, District Regulations. Requested action, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 11, District Regulations, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
May I have a motion? Counselor
Second.
Pease, seconded by Counselor Harriman. Director Hediger?
I will note that this ties into your next agenda item here with respect to accessory dwelling units, but we've made it clear that home occupations can be allowed in all zoning districts and accessory dwelling units can be allowed in all dwelling units. Excuse me.
Public hearing. Back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Agenda item number 5.
Item number 5, public hearing and final passage for an amendment to the Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 12, Performance Standards. Requested action, that the proposed amendment to Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 12, Performance Standards, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
I have a motion. Counselor Pease.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor LaChapelle. And Director Hediger.
Just briefly, because it is a good thing, and I think you'll hear about it from your constituents as well, but accessory dwelling units, we used to allow in-law apartments. It had to be a blood relative. This takes care of that or eliminates that, and that does not need to necessarily be a blood relative. It does not need to be attached to the principal residence anymore as well. There's square footage limitations as to how small and how big, so you can't necessarily have 2 huge dwellings on the property. It caps out at 900 square feet, 2 bedrooms on it, and one of those units has to be owned by or occupied by the property owner. This is tied to LD 2003. I think it mentioned last time. We feel pretty confident that we're going in the right direction with this, but there is rulemaking going on in Augusta, so there's a chance that we end up coming back with some tweaks to this. But I can tell you staff has already received probably 6 phone calls over the last couple of months about, can I do this? And I keep on telling them, talk to me in May, assuming everything goes smoothly here.
Thank you, Director Hediger. Counselor Clement.
If I heard you correctly, this does put us a leg up on 2003, you think?
Yes, exactly. There are other aspects of 2003 that we still have to explore, but this is one of the easier ones and one of the ones that I think
That's
has
putting it
overall
mildly.
support from community members as well.
That's putting it mildly. Yes.
I'm sorry, Counselor Clement?
No, go for it.
Oh,
No
okay.
problem. Yep.
Public hearing for this. And back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
Thank you, Council. Briefly, Mayor, if I can just add that the planning board will be looking at the Main Street corridor zoning changes on Monday, so we'll be coming back to you folks probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks with that next corridor of zoning map changes as well.
We appreciate your efforts, Director Hediger.
You'll be out of work then at the end of that?
I don't know, I hope not.
We also appreciate you, Planner Norton.
No, we're making a lot of changes right now, so it's good, and you folks in the council, the planning board have been supportive, so we appreciate that.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
Item number 8, Madam Clerk.
Item number 8, order authorizing execution of municipal quitclaim deed for real estate located at 10 School Street. Requested action to approve the order authorizing execution of municipal quitclaim deed for real estate located at 10 School Street.
So
I
moved.
have a motion.
Second.
Counselor Pease, seconded by Counselor Harriman. Discussion, public comment, back to the council. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Counsel from Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 to 0.
We're up to reports and updates.
Yes, reports and updates.
We were all together last night.
I was
so-
going to say, we all should have been paying attention last night. Without further reports and any, okay. Now we're up to new business. And without seeing anything, and now we're up to a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hold on, we're going to wait for our Madam Clerk.
I'm sorry. I
Something
apologize.
wrong?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Counselor from Ward 2? Is that
Yes.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Have a wonderful evening, Lewiston.
Oh, yes, I